Chapter 1408. Shao Chun stood alone on stage 1, surrounded by disciples of the Power King Pavilion. Countless pairs of eyes fell on Shao Chun. Everyone wanted to see with their own eyes what kind of person this chosen, who had recently been in the limelight on the Saint rankings, was. His clothes were as white as snow, and his hair was as black as ink. His face was handsome, but his figure was too thin. In the barbarian tribe, such a thin figure was not acceptable. The first impression the disciples of the Power King Pavilion had of Shao Chun was that he was thin, but what could they do? Shao Chun was not from the barbarian tribe. Moreover, even if Shao Chun had the ability to strengthen his body, Shao Chun would not do so. If Shao Chun was as tall and burly as the barbarian tribe, even Shao Chun would not be able to accept it. What a joke, the barbarian tribe was already unbearably burly. Shao Chun did not know what the disciples of the Power King Pavilion thought of him, but even if he knew, he would not care. After all, to them, Shao Chun was just a passerby. Moreover, Shao Chun did not plan to stay in the barbarian tribe's territory for long. After challenging Wang Lushan, Shao Chun would only travel around the barbarian tribe's territory before heading to the territories of other races. They did not have to wait for long. Soon, Wang Lushan appeared on stage number 1. As soon as Wang Lushan appeared, the disciples of the Power King Pavilion cheered in unison. Although Wang Lushan was not the strongest chosen on the Saint rankings, he was still very popular in the Power King Pavilion. Everyone cheered, but Wang Lushan did not change his expression. His eyes fell on Shao Chun, and a smile appeared on his face. Shao Chun, I've heard a lot about you. Recently, Shao Chun had really been in the limelight on the Saint rankings. If one were to ask who had improved the fastest on the Saint rankings, it would undoubtedly be Shao Chun. Hearing Wang Lushan's words, Shao Chun said calmly, "Do you care about these false reputations?" He did not become arrogant because of these false reputations. Shao Chun knew very well that these things were false and useless. Strength was king. Hearing Shao Chun's words, Wang Lushan laughed heartily. "Haha, interesting. In that case, come at me." As he spoke, a terrifying aura rose from Wang Lushan's body. He had reached the sage-to-be. Just the aura that Wang Lushan had erupted proved that he was stronger than Zhou Meng. However, wasn't such an opponent what Shao Chun needed the most. Therefore, Shao Chun did not back down when he sensed Wang Lushan's terrifying aura. An aura that was not weaker than Wang Lushan's also rose from Shao Chun's body. The sage-to-be. Shao Chun had reached the sage-to-be. The surrounding disciples of the Power King Pavilion were stunned when they sensed Shao Chun's aura. Shao Chun had definitely not been on the Saint rankings for a long time. Most people knew that Shao Chun's cultivation was only at the perfection stage of the Tao Emperor realm. But now, Shao Chun was clearly a sage-to-be. The speed of his breakthrough was a little too fast, and it shocked everyone present. On the other hand, Wang Lushan's expression did not change too much. Shao Chun's breakthrough was within Wang Lushan's expectations. Otherwise, how could Shao Chun have taken the initiative to challenge him before he had broken through to the sage-to-be? Surmounting a realm of cultivation to battle didn't exist on the Saint rankings. If one wanted to win, the most basic condition was to have a similar cultivation. So, Wang Lushan had guessed that Shao Chun's cultivation was very likely to have broken through to the sage-to-be before the battle began. Interesting. Shao Chun, I hope you won't disappoint me. Wang Lushan laughed heartily, and then he took the initiative to attack. He suddenly charged towards Shao Chun. The strongest aspect of the barbarian race was their physical strength. So, the barbarian race could practically break through all techniques with brute force. They didn't use any fancy moves at all. It was a simple punch without any fancy moves. However, the strength of this punch was terrifying to the extreme, and space started to shatter inch by inch. The attack hadn't arrived yet, but the terrifying aura had completely enveloped Shao Chun. No one had expected Shao Chun's actions when facing Wang Lushan's punch. Xiao Chen didn't dodge, nor did he draw his sword. Instead, his entire body shone brightly with golden light as he met Wang Lushan's punch with a fierce punch. Xiao Chen pushed the tempered battle body to the extreme. In terms of physical strength, Xiao Chen wasn't inferior to anyone, even the barbarian race. After so many years, Xiao Chen had personally experienced the terror of the tempered battle body. So, from the beginning, Xiao Chen planned to have a head-on collision with Wang Lushan. Rich golden light enveloped Xiao Chen's body. As his opponent, Wang Lushan also felt the terrifying physical strength of Xiao Chen. A hint of doubt flashed in his eyes. He knew more about Xiao Chen's swordsmanship than his physical strength. Although Xiao Chen's physical strength was also very strong, it hadn't received much attention. After all, everyone thought that Xiao Chen was a swordsman. Wang Lushan could clearly feel that the physical strength of Xiao Chen's physical strength had already surpassed that of many disciples in the Power King Pavilion. Haha, interesting. Take my punch. Wang Lushan didn't expect Xiao Chen to have such a strong physical strength. His fighting spirit soared, and he punched without hesitation. Both of them punched at the same time, and the two fists collided in the air. Then, there was a loud bang. Smoke and dust filled the air, and the space collapsed inch by inch. The power of this punch wasn't inferior to a divine-level martial skill. Xiao Chen and Wang Lushan's figures disappeared under the smoke and dust. But soon, a disciple of the Power King Pavilion shouted in surprise. "Look over there!" At first, no one saw the two figures because of the smoke and dust. But as the smoke and dust slowly dispersed, Xiao Chen and Wang Lushan were already fighting fiercely. There weren't any fancy movements. Every move seemed incomparably simple, but it carried a terrifying might. It was a pure physical collision, and there was no technique to speak of. But it was a real fight, and the disciples of the Power King Pavilion felt their blood boiling. The barbarians revered strength, so their battles were also the simplest and most brutal. At that moment, Xiao Chen, who was a human, was actually fighting Wang Lushan's physical body head-on. They were clashing physically. Bang, bang, bang. Both of them were extremely fast, and their strength was also extremely great. As the fierce fight continued, the first battle stage was already filled with gravel. Xiao Chen's physical strength is so strong. Many disciples of the Power King Pavilion exclaimed as they watched the battle between the two. They were shocked by the strength of Xiao Chen's physical body. It was indeed shocking that a human could possess such a powerful physical body. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 1409. As a human, Xiao Chen actually possessed such terrifying physical strength that even many disciples of the Power King Pavilion were terrified. Those who originally thought that Xiao Chen was too thin and mocked Xiao Chen for not being able to withstand a single blow shut their mouths one by one. What a joke! If they went up against someone who could exchange blows with Wang Lushan, they would probably be blown apart by Xiao Chen in a single punch. The battle had only just begun, but it had already made everyone's blood boil. This kind of bloody battle where fists met flesh was what the barbarians loved the most. There were no fancy attacks, only a pure collision of strength. However, even though Xiao Chen had the tempered battle body, he still gradually fell into a disadvantageous position in the battle of physical strength. The tempered battle body was very strong, but the barbarians were born with a strong physical body. It could be said that it was a unique talent of the barbarians. Therefore, it was impossible to rely on physical strength to defeat a barbarian holy son like Wang Lushan. However, after this battle, Xiao Chen also had a deeper understanding of the tempered battle body. He did not let himself down. Although there was still a gap between him and Wang Lushan, Xiao Chen did not care. The barbarian's physical body was strong to begin with. The fact that he could achieve this was enough to show how terrifying the tempered battle body was. In the fierce battle, Wang Lushan gradually gained the upper hand and began to suppress Xiao Chen. However, just when everyone thought that Wang Lushan was going to take down Xiao Chen in one fell swoop, Wang Lushan suddenly stopped attacking. Draw your sword. As a sword cultivator, if you don't draw your sword, Xiao Chen, you are no match for me. Wang Lushan was also shocked by Xiao Chen's physical strength, but that was all. In terms of physical strength, Wang Lushan definitely suppressed Xiao Chen. Since Wang Lushan was going to fight, he was naturally going to go all out. Wang Lushan did not like the fact that Xiao Chen was going to fight him with only his physical strength because he still had some trump cards that he had not used yet. Hearing Wang Lushan's words, Xiao Chen did not stubbornly insist on fighting Wang Lushan physically. With a thought, the dustless sword appeared in his hand. With the dustless sword in hand, Xiao Chen's aura instantly became fierce. It was completely different from before. With the dustless sword in hand, Xiao Chen finally showed his true strength. Sensing the sharp sword will emanating from Xiao Chen, a smile appeared on Wang Lushan's face. This was the feeling he was looking for. Xiao Chen was very strong, but it was precisely because of this that Wang Lushan was interested in fighting. Otherwise, if Xiao Chen was too weak, Wang Lushan might not even be interested in fighting. Haha, that's what makes it interesting. Xiao Chen, you're very good. Wang Lushan's aura soared once more. It was clear that he had not used his full strength just now. In the eyes of Xiao Chen and Wang Lushan, the previous fierce battle was just a warm-up. This was the real battle. In fact, it was much more terrifying than before. Xiao Chen's sword domain and the law of gravity instantly spread out. However, Wang Lushan was enveloped by the sword domain and the law of gravity, and did not seem to have any effect on him. The sword domain and the law of gravity could not suppress Wang Lushan at all. This was what the barbarians called breaking all laws with brute force. The barbarians did not like to comprehend the sword domain and the power of law. In their opinion, it was better to improve their own strength than to spend a lot of time comprehending these things. As long as they were strong enough, they would naturally not be afraid of these things. Wang Lushan had naturally reached the level of breaking all laws with brute force. The sword domain and the law of gravity were useless against him. He was not affected at all. He directly attacked Xiao Chen with his fist. Seeing this, Xiao Chen also slashed out with his sword. The sword light flashed, but it was shattered by Wang Lushan's fist. The fierce battle continued, but this time, Xiao Chen and Wang Lushan's aura had indeed improved a lot. The terrifying power of each blow was enough to make even a saint tremble. The fist and the sword collided constantly, and the terrifying aftershocks constantly impacted the formation. Fortunately, the formation of the Power King Pavilion was strong. Otherwise, it would not have been able to withstand the aftershocks of the battle. The fierce battle continued. Xiao Chen used all kinds of terrifying martial techniques one after another. Wang Lushan, on the other hand, relied on his iron fists to contend with him. He did not fall into a disadvantage at all. Very quickly, 4 hours had passed, and there was still no sign of a victor being decided between the two of them. However, such a long and intense battle did not make the surrounding crowd feel bored. On the contrary, everyone was extremely excited as they watched the battle between the two of them. Strong, they were really too strong. Such a battle was not something that could be seen at any time. After 4 hours of fierce battle, Xiao Chen already knew that his strength had improved a lot after breaking through to the Sage-to-Be realm. His strength was very close to Wang Lushan's. It could be said that they were almost evenly matched. At this point, Xiao Chen also knew that it would be difficult to determine the winner if they did not use their trump card. After slashing out with his sword and forcing Wang Lushan to retreat, Xiao Chen said, "Let's decide the winner with one move." There was no point in continuing the battle. It was difficult to determine the winner, so it was better to decide the winner with one move. Hearing Xiao Chen's words, Wang Lushan did not refuse and nodded. Okay. As he spoke, Wang Lushan's aura began to rise. At the same time, streaks of earthy yellow spiritual energy gathered wildly on his right fist. Before he punched out, the terrifying aura was enough to make countless people tremble in fear. This was Wang Lushan's strongest punch, and Xiao Chen was not about to let his guard down when faced with such a punch. He slowly pointed with his finger, and the cyan sword will continue to compress at the tip of his finger, eventually forming a cyan light spot. With a point of his finger, the moist sword finger was instantly displayed. During this period, Xiao Chen naturally did not neglect the cultivation of his martial technique. The moist sword finger, a middle sacred level martial technique, had been cultivated by Xiao Chen to the perfection level. The Moxie sword finger that had reached the transformative level was naturally several times more powerful than before. At this moment, as the finger was pointed out, a green sword beam streaked across the sky. The space collapsed and the sky seemed to be covered by the green light. A sword piercing the sky. Xiao Chen's finger indeed carried a trace of such power. However, in the face of Xiao Chen's finger, Wang Lushan did not have the slightest intention of retreating. He fiercely punched out and a yellow light bloomed. At the same time, an iron fist formed by spiritual energy violently bombarded the green sword light. When the fist and the sword collided, the dazzling light made it impossible for people to open their eyes. The terrifying aftershocks were rampant in the array. As for Xiao Chen and Wang Lushan's figures, they had long been swallowed by it. This was the strongest attack of the two. With such a terrifying power, even an expert of the perfect saint realm would not dare to take it head-on. Please add it to your collection. Monthly vote recommend it. Chapter 1410. The green sword chi and the yellow fist print collided fiercely. Terrifying shockwaves spread out wildly. The light was so dazzling that people couldn't open their eyes. Although there was the protection of the array and the shockwaves didn't spread to the surroundings, the ground of the first battle stage collapsed in an instant. The first battle stage was directly smashed into pieces by the collision of the two. The light was blinding and sand filled the air. No one could see Xiao Chen and Wang Lushan's figures at all. Only when the light slowly dissipated did everyone look at the first stage. However, the first stage had already been razed to the ground. Sand filled the air. No one could see Xiao Chen and Wang Lushan's figures at all. How was it? What was the result? Someone could not help but ask. However, no one could answer that question. No one knew what the result was. Everyone waited nervously. Time slowly passed. Around 15 minutes later, the sand finally dispersed. Xiao Chen and Wang Lushan appeared before everyone once more. The two of them stood back to back. There was still a trace of blood at the corner of Xiao Chen's mouth. Clearly, he had been injured by Wang Lushan's punch. On the other hand, there was a bloody hole in Wang Lushan's chest. Blood constantly flowed out. Xiao Chen's moist sword finger had probably injured him. It could be said that both sides were injured. However, no one could tell who had won. Under everyone's nervous gazes, Xiao Chen's body trembled slightly as if he was about to fall. However, Xiao Chen quickly stabilized himself. He struggled to maintain his standing posture. He didn't fall down, but Wang Lushan was different. He didn't move at all. Everyone only saw Wang Lushan's body fall straight back. There was no expression in his eyes. Clearly, Wang Lushan had lost consciousness. He had directly fainted. Wang Lushan crashed to the ground. The outcome was clear. Xiao Chen had defeated Wang Lushan by a hair's breadth. Seeing Wang Lushan fall to the ground, the disciples of the Power King Pavilion were in disbelief. Before the battle, they all thought that Wang Lushan would definitely win. Who would have thought that the final victor would be Xiao Chen? In such an intense battle, it could be said that both of them had used all their means and exerted all their strength. In the end, Xiao Chen was still a little more skilled and won. However, as Wang Lushan fell to the ground, Xiao Chen also fell to the ground. His face was extremely pale. Xiao Chen had been pushed to his limits in this battle. Wang Lushan's combat strength was indeed very strong. No wonder he was ranked 52nd on the Saint ranking. He immediately tossed a healing pill into his mouth. At this moment, the Saint rankings appeared in the sky once again. Xiao Chen had successfully replaced Wang Lushan as the 52nd chosen on the Saint rankings. The Saint rankings changed once more. Xiao Chen's ranking rose once more. This time, Xiao Chen's ranking had clearly attracted the attention of many people. In the Xianyuan clan of the human race, Xianyuan Baijian clenched his fists as he stared at Xiao Chen's name in the sky. Dense killing intent madly condensed around him. The faster Xiao Chen improved, the more dangerous Xianyuan Baijian felt. The killing intent in his heart grew denser as well. Compared to Xianyuan Baijian in the Dragon Clan, Long Yang smiled faintly when he saw the changes on the Saint rankings. Not bad. Brother Xiao Chen has defeated Wang Lushan. It looks like he has broken through to the half-saint realm. Long Yang wanted Xiao Chen to become the celestial saint as soon as possible. Now, Xiao Chen was already ranked 52nd on the saint rankings. He wasn't far from becoming the celestial saint. However, the real challenge was only about to begin. After all, the higher the ranking of the chosen on the saint rankings, the more difficult it would be to defeat them. It wouldn't be easy. People throughout the central world were paying attention to the changes on the saint rankings. Everyone had different thoughts. However, Xiao Chen clearly didn't know about this, nor was he in the mood to think about it. After all, Xiao Chen was currently recuperating in the Power King Pavilion. Xiao Chen had indeed won the battle against Wang Lushan, but Xiao Chen had paid a huge price for it. He was heavily injured as well, so he wasn't in a hurry to leave the Power King Pavilion. Instead, he chose to stay and recuperate. Just as Zhou Meng had said, Xiao Chen's victory over Wang Lushan had exceeded the expectations of many disciples of the Power King Pavilion, but no one came looking for trouble with Xiao Chen. After all, Xiao Chen had relied on his own strength to defeat Wang Lushan. Even if there were people who weren't convinced, they couldn't find any excuse to take revenge on Xiao Chen. No one came to disturb him, which was exactly what Xiao Chen wanted. This was for the best. After staying in the Power King Pavilion for 8 days, Xiao Chen's injuries recovered quickly. During this time, Tong Huang and some of his old friends from the North Star world also came to visit Xiao Chen. Although they had joined the Power King Pavilion, they didn't have any hostility towards Xiao Chen. After all, they were all from the North Star world and could be considered old friends. 8 days passed, and Xiao Chen planned to leave the Power King Pavilion. During this time, the Vice Pavilion Master of the Power King Pavilion also came to look for Xiao Chen once. He didn't say anything special, merely representing the Power King Pavilion to take a look at Xiao Chen's injuries. Early in the morning, when Xiao Chen was about to leave, Tong Huang and the others came to send him off. As for Zhou Meng, he also needed to return to the barbarian god sect. Xiao Chen, where do you plan to go next? Outside the Power King Pavilion's entrance, Tong Huang looked at Xiao Chen and asked. Facing Tong Huang's question, Xiao Chen had no intention of hiding anything, smiling faintly as he answered, I should be tempering myself in the barbarian race's territory for a while, then I'll head to the heavenly race's territory. After that, I'll make a detour to the beast race's territory to return to the human race. Xiao Chen's itinerary this time wasn't complicated, and Xiao Chen didn't plan to visit some of the races that were hostile to the human race. Therefore, Xiao Chen had decided to start from the barbarian race's territory, then head to the heavenly race's territory to check on Tian Yu's situation. Lastly, he would make a detour to the beast race's territory to return to the human race. It was a very simple itinerary, only passing through the territories of 4 races. Of course, this was also for safety reasons. Xiao Chen didn't plan to visit races that had a tense relationship with the human race. After all, if there was danger, it would be troublesome. Even with the will of the Heavenly Way's protection, Xiaoqun wouldn't be able to do anything if some experts were willing to exchange their lives for his. Therefore, safety was his top priority. Hearing Xiaoqun's words, Tong Huang nodded slightly, and then be careful. Brother Xiaoqun, take care. And, Brother Tong Huang too, take care. Xiaoqun replied. After bidding farewell to Tong Huang and the others, Xiaoqun left the Power King Pavilion, beginning his training in the barbarian race's territory. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 14:11. It had been nearly 2 months since he entered the barbarian race's territory. During this time, Xiaoqun had challenged Zhou Meng and Wang Lushan. His ranking on the Saint rankings had also risen from 79th to 52nd. However, after continuously challenging Zhou Meng and Wang Lushan, Xiaoqun no longer had a suitable target among the 10 barbarian race holy sons. They were either too strong or too weak. Xiaoqun did not intend to challenge the powerful barbarian race holy sons because the gap between them was too great. The weakest one was ranked in the top 30. If he challenged them at this time, Xiaoqun would be purely looking for a beating. As for the weaker holy sons, their rankings on the saint rankings were not as good as Xiaoqun's. Thus, there was no point in challenging them. There were no barbarian race holy sons who were close to Xiaoqun in terms of ranking and strength. Therefore, Xiaoqun planned to fight in the divine race's territory. Of course, before that, Xiaoqun also planned to train in the barbarian race's territory. After all, the goal of this training trip was to raise his ranking on the saint rankings. However, raising his own strength could not be ignored. After all, if his own strength did not increase, then how could Xiaoqun challenge the holy sons who were ranked higher on the saint rankings? The barbarian race's territory was larger than the human race's territory. There were also some famous training grounds. However, Xiaoqun did not go to any of the barbarian race's territory. On the contrary, Xiaoqun seemed to be aimlessly training in the barbarian race's territory. Wherever he went, he would go. Along the way from the Power King Pavilion, Xiaoqun passed by one barbarian town and tribe after another. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, more than a month had passed. During this month, the saint rankings had undergone earth-shaking changes. Many old holy sons were kicked out of the saint rankings, and many new faces stepped onto the saint rankings. Among these new faces were Chun Ling, Long Qing, Tian Yu, and Chen Yu. When he saw their names appear one after another on the saint leaderboard, a smile appeared on Xiaoqun's face. Actually, Chun Ling and the others had the qualifications to ascend the hallowed rankings since a long time ago. Unfortunately, the 4 of them didn't seem to be interested in it. The reason they were able to ascend the hallowed rankings this time was probably because the 4 of them had coincidentally defeated a chosen on the hallowed rankings. Of course, the 4 of them were not the only new saints on the saint rankings. It was the same for people from other races. Almost every race had new faces on the saint rankings. That was how the holy rankings worked. Everything depended on one's strength. If one's strength was not up to par, even if one was a veteran son of the holy rankings, it was very likely that one would be kicked out of the holy rankings. Only the capable would be able to take the top spot. This was the purpose of the will of the Heavenly Way's holy rankings. All, in just over a month's time, the holy rankings had undergone a huge change. This was probably the result of the integration of the 4 major astral realms and the central world. Of course, the biggest changes were the saints who were ranked at the bottom of the holy rankings. For example, Xiaoqun was currently ranked 52nd. The saints on the holy rankings during this period didn't change much. After all, it was impossible for the new saints on the holy rankings to be ranked in the 50s right from the start. As for the Big Dipper saints, who were ranked in the top 36, they weren't affected at all. After all, The Big Dipper Saint's strength was already significantly different from the Earth Emanations Saints. The new saints on the holy rankings wouldn't be a threat to them. The changes on the holy rankings had indeed caused quite a stir. However, after feeling happy for Chen Ling and the others in the beginning, Xiao Chen soon stopped paying attention to the changes on the holy rankings. After all, no matter how the holy rankings changed, what Xiao Chen needed to do now was to continuously increase his strength and become a Big Dipper Saint as soon as possible. The names on the holy rankings continued to change every day. From time to time, a screen of the holy rankings would appear in the sky. However, Xiao Chen didn't care about this at all. During this period of time, Xiao Chen entered the largest mountain range in the barbarian race's territory. Xiao Chen planned to cross this mountain range. After all, as long as he passed through this mountain range, Xiao Chen would be able to enter the Sky Race's territory. It was called the Sky Barbaric Mountain Range. The Sky Barbaric Mountain Range was the dividing line between the Sky Race and the Barbarian Race's territory. It was said that there were many precious spirit herbs and spirit fruits in the Sky Barbaric Mountain Range. Therefore, although the Sky Barbaric Mountain Range was huge, it wasn't actually desolate. One could encounter Barbarian Race and Sky Race martialists from time to time. Martialists from both races liked to enter the Sky Barbaric Mountain Range. Firstly, it was for power. Secondly, it was to try their luck and see if they could find some precious spirit herbs and spirit fruit. They had been traveling in the Sky Barbaric Mountain Range for about 10 days. Since leaving the Power King Pavilion, Xiao Chen had been cultivating in the Barbarian Race's territory for 3 months. It had been about half a year since he left the human race's territory. Half a year seemed very short, but Xiao Chen's progress was undoubtedly huge. Not only had his cultivation improved, but Xiao Chen had also made great progress in other aspects. During these 3 months, Xiao Chen had experienced many battles. There were fights with some Barbarian Race's bandits and disputes with some Barbarian Race's tribes. In general, Xiao Chen had spent most of these 3 months cultivating and fighting. After all, he was in the Barbarian Race's territory. Although the Barbarian Race did not hate the human race, as a human wandering alone in the Barbarian Race's territory, the Barbarian Race's forces would not show any mercy. Therefore, battles were inevitable. It was in such constant battles that Xiao Chen's strength improved every day. Cultivation, martial skills, and so on were all improving. Xiao Chen had already practiced the Scorching Sun swordsmanship and the Absolute Yin footwork, the 2 mid-level saint-level martial arts techniques that Yin Yangzi had given him, to perfection. Their power had increased several times over. As for the Moi sword hair, Xiao Chen had practiced it to perfection. At this time, Xiao Chen had already begun to practice the 8th finger of the 9 heaven sword finger, the Red Cloud sword finger. At night, in the silent Sky Barbaric Mountain Range, Xiao Chen sat cross-legged on a branch of a big tree. He was breathing evenly as he cultivated. However, in this quiet night, a faint sound of fighting was suddenly heard. It was obvious that there were people fighting in the surroundings. Feeling this, Xiao Chen slowly opened his eyes. Originally, this kind of fighting was not rare in the Sky Barbaric Mountain Range. After all, there were not only the Barbarian Race in the Sky Barbaric Mountain Range, but also the Tian Race. It was very common for warriors of the 2 races to fight over some precious spiritual grass and spiritual fruit. However, Xiao Chen sensed that there should be a large number of people fighting between the 2 sides. There should be at least a few hundred people. With such a large-scale fight, the things they found would not be simple. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 14:12. A chaotic battle between hundreds of people. They must have found something good. Otherwise, it would not have caused such a large-scale chaotic battle. Thinking of this, the corners of Xiao Chen's mouth curled into a smile. Then, he moved and under the cover of the night, he quickly rushed towards the source of the battle. The distance was not far. Soon, Xiao Chen arrived at the periphery of a small hill. He hid in a big tree and tried his best to restrain his aura as he looked towards the direction of the small hill. At a glance, he saw hundreds of people fighting crazily with the small hill as the center. There should be a total of 2 sides, the barbarian clan's side and the Tian clan's side. The martial warriors of the 2 clans were fighting with each other, but judging from their actions, both sides were deliberately avoiding the small hill, afraid that the aftermath of the battle would cause any harm to the small hill. They could actually avoid the small hill during the battle. In this way, there should be some precious spirit fruit or spirit herb on the small hill. Therefore, both parties were unwilling to let it be destroyed. After watching the battle between the 2 parties, there really were experts here. The barbarian race had 2 quasi-saint great venerables, and the celestial race also had 1 quasi-saint great venerables. However, judging from the battle, the quasi-saint great venerables of the celestial race were obviously stronger. At the very least, he had reached the perfection of the quasi-saint realm. He was not at a disadvantage when fighting against 2 opponents. In addition to the top 3 quasi-saint great venerables, there were even more saints, half-saints, and Tao emperors below them. With so many experts gathered together, Xiao Chen looked forward to the treasure here even more. What kind of good thing could attract so many experts to fight over it? Moreover, from the looks of it, neither side was willing to give in. Retracting his gaze from the experts of both parties, Xiao Chen looked at the small hill in the distance. In fact, there was nothing special about the small hill, but there was a small tree at the top of the hill. But just as Xiao Chen's gaze fell on the small tree, a golden fruit at the top of the branch attracted Xiao Chen's attention. After taking a closer look, Xiao Chen's face suddenly changed. He was excited as he stared at the golden fruit. Xiao Chen said in disbelief, "This is the barbarian god's fruit?" He had seen the introduction of the barbarian god's fruit in an ancient book. It was an extremely rare spirit fruit that could only be found by chance. The barbarian god's fruit was extremely useful for body-refining martial artists. In the barbarian race, the barbarian god's fruit was definitely the strongest spirit fruit. Of course, the barbarian god's fruit was not only the barbarian race but also Xiao Chen. The barbarian god's fruit was extremely useful for the cultivation of the tempered battle body. If Xiao Chen had a barbarian god fruit, he might not be able to reach the 4th level of the tempered battle body, the undying realm, but he would definitely be able to reach the limit of the 3rd level of the celestial realm. He did not expect that there would be a barbarian god's fruit here. It was an irresistible temptation for Xiao Chen. He was already tempted by the barbarian god's fruit. Who in the world would not be tempted by the barbarian god's fruit? Therefore, even though there were hundreds of experts around, Xiao Chen had already begun to think about how to obtain the barbarian god's fruit. It was impossible to snatch it by force. After all, there were many experts in the 2 races. There were 3 quasi-saint great venerables, more than 30 saint realm experts, and more than 100 half-saint and Tao emperor realm experts. It was impossible for Xiao Chen to snatch it by force in the face of such a force. Should I wait until both sides are injured before making a move? Xiao Chen thought to himself. But on second thought, this was not realistic. First of all, it would be impossible for the 2 sides to come to a conclusion in a short period of time. Moreover, Xiao Chen estimated that one side would have to pay a price in the end, which would be equivalent to buying the barbarian god fruit. That would be the end of it. Once the final result was like that, Xiao Chen would have no chance at all. So, it was not realistic to wait until both sides were injured. There did not seem to be a good way. Xiao Chen was alone. It was indeed too difficult for him to obtain the barbarian god's fruit under the noses of both sides. Xiao Chen continued to ponder in his heart. After a while, a bright light suddenly flashed through his eyes. He had an idea. Even though it was still dangerous, it was at least possible. Currently, the 2 sides could be said to be locked in battle. In this way, if one side suddenly became stronger and the balance was broken, what would the result be? Since they already had the advantage, it was obvious that there would be no reconciliation. The stronger side would definitely force the other side to retreat and enjoy the barbarian god's fruit alone. Xiao Chen's method was actually not complicated. This was the heavenly barbarian mountain range, and there were many barbarian race experts here. If Xiao Chen could attract another group of barbarian race experts, at that time, the barbarian race's strength would surpass the Tian clans, and the victor would definitely be decided. At that time, the Tian clan would definitely not be able to win and could only choose to retreat. The barbarian race would definitely chase after them, and at that time, the victor would be decided. The barbarian race's protection of the barbarian god's fruit would be a vacuum. After all, at that time, the barbarian race experts would definitely be busy chasing after the Tian clan. They would all think that the barbarian god's fruit was already in their pockets, so they would definitely be careless and make a mistake. What Xiao Qin needed to do was to grab hold of this flaw and snatch the barbarian god's fruit before the barbarian race experts returned from chasing after the Tian clan. Then, he would directly escape into the Tian clan's territory. At that time, even if the barbarian race experts reacted, they would not be able to do anything to Xiao Qin. This was the only feasible plan. Only in this way would Xiao Qin have a chance. Of course, the process was also extremely dangerous. Just think about it, if Xiao Qin was unable to snatch the barbarian god's fruit before the barbarian race experts returned, then when the barbarian race experts returned, Xiao Qin would be in danger. At that time, he probably wouldn't be able to leave even if he wanted to. Time was of the essence, and it all depended on whether Xiao Qin could successfully snatch the barbarian god's fruit in this short period of time and escape into the Tian clan's territory. The method was feasible, but the process was too dangerous. Any mistake was enough to cause Xiao Qin to lose his life. However, in the face of the temptation of the barbarian god's fruit, Xiao Qin was willing to take the risk. A fierce glint flashed in Xiao Qin's eyes as he said in a deep voice, "I don't care anymore, I'll take the risk. Wealth comes from danger. If I can obtain this barbarian god's fruit, my tempered battle body can at least reach the limit of the third heavenly body." Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 14:13. At a time like this, when faced with such powerful forces from both sides, the most logical thing to do would be to quietly retreat. However, the barbarian god fruit was too attractive to Xiao Qin. It was so attractive that Xiao Qin was willing to risk his life for it. A cultivator's cultivation was never simple. Any resources had to be fought for with one's own hands. Now, there was an irresistible barbarian god fruit in front of him. Although retreating was the safest option, it also meant that he would miss out on such a treasure. With Xiao Chen's personality, he obviously wouldn't allow a treasure like the barbarian god fruit to slip away from him. Therefore, even though it was dangerous, Xiao Chen was still willing to give it a try. After taking a deep look at the small tree on the small hill and the golden fruit on the tree, Xiao Chen slowly disappeared into the darkness. He wanted to attract other barbarian race experts and break the balance between both sides. He wanted to make them lose the chance to negotiate. At the same time, he wanted to make the barbarian race experts chase after the sky race experts. Therefore, this short period of time was the best time for Xiao Qin to make his move. In the darkness, groups of people who were resting in the sky barbarian mountain range received news that a treasure had appeared. It was said that it was a barbarian god fruit. This news was naturally released by Xiao Qin. How could these barbarian race experts hold back when they heard that the barbarian god fruit had appeared? To the barbarian race, the barbarian god fruit was the #1 treasure in the world. Nothing could compare to it. After all, the barbarian god fruit's main use was to temper the body. The most powerful part was the body. Therefore, the barbarian god fruit was the most precious treasure in the world to the barbarian race. Groups of barbarian race experts rushed towards the small hill. There were hundreds of them. At this point, Xiao Chen didn't continue to spread the news. The addition of these people was enough to break the balance. What Xiao Chen needed to do now was to return to the small hill and wait for the battle to end. When the barbarian race experts began to chase after him, that would be the time for Xiao Chen to make his move. Just like before, they quietly hid outside the small hill. At this time, the brute tribe experts who were attracted by Xiao Chen also joined the battle. Although there was only one barbarian god fruit, and even after defeating the Tian race, these barbarian race experts would still have to fight for a while. However, there were outsiders present, so they naturally had to deal with them first. As for their own internal matters, they would have to wait until after defeating the Tian race. It was obvious that the face of the quasi-sage great sovereign of the Tian clan was extremely ugly. Originally, the strength of both sides could be said to be on par, but hundreds of barbarian race experts had suddenly joined the battle. As a result, the Tian clan side naturally fell into a disadvantage. Their numbers had been halved, and if they continued fighting, they wouldn't be a match for the barbarians. After a while, the quasi-sage from the Celestials clenched his teeth and shouted, "Retreat!" Following these words, the experts of the Tian clan naturally retreated without the slightest hesitation. Seeing this, the two quasi-sage great sovereigns of the barbarian race were indeed as Xiao Chen had thought, and angrily shouted, "Want to leave? Kill them!" The two quasi-sage great sovereigns of the barbarian race didn't have to kill all the Tian race experts. They just wanted to completely force them out of this area. After all, although the Tian race had retreated, there would definitely be a fight within the barbarian race for the barbarian god fruit. At this time, if the Tian race was still hiding in the surroundings, then the barbarian race would be in danger. Anyone could think of this point, so they had to completely force the barbarian race to leave this area. Only then could the barbarian race have peace of mind to compete for the ownership of the barbarian god fruit. As the two barbarian race experts roared, many barbarian race experts chased after them, but they also left some people behind to guard the barbarian god fruit. Of course, there weren't many of them, and it was just a saint leading 3 half-saints. The two sides, one fleeing and one chasing, quickly disappeared into the horizon. Only the intermittent aftermath of the battle continued to prove that the fierce battle between the two sides was still going on. At this time, Xiao Chen didn't care about anything else. His figure moved, and under the cover of the night, he carefully approached the top of the small hill. They didn't notice Xiao Chen at all. At this time, at the top of the small hill, the 4 barbarian race experts were greedily looking at the barbarian god fruit on the branch. The barbarian god fruit was a great temptation to them, but they weren't fools. They knew that with their strength and status, the barbarian god fruit obviously wouldn't fall into their hands. "Sigh, it would be great if we could also get a barbarian god fruit." One of the half-saints sighed as he looked at the barbarian god fruit. When he heard this, the saint in the lead shouted in a low voice, "Don't think about such useless things. How could we possibly get our hands on such a treasure? Just set your mind at ease and guard this place well. The Lord will definitely not treat us unfairly when the time comes." This saint had thought things through. Without strength, taking some things was akin to courting death. But as soon as the saint finished his words, an ice-cold voice sounded from the darkness. "That's right. This thing isn't something that you can get your hands on because it's mine." The sudden voice made the saint's hair stand on end. He turned around abruptly. "Who is it?" However, before he could react, a green sword ray flashed in the darkness. Caught off guard, the green sword ray instantly pierced through the saint's head. There was no time to waste, so Xiao Chen used his killer move right away. He performed the Moi sword finger and killed the saint in an instant. Seeing that the saint had been killed in an instant, the remaining 3 half-saints turned pale. At the same time, Xiao Chun strode out of the darkness. Human? You're Xiao Chun. The three half-saints were puzzled at first when they saw that it was a human cultivator. But soon, one of them recognized Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun had defeated Zhou Meng and Wang Lushan in the barbarian race's territory during this period of time. Therefore, it wasn't strange for the three half-saints to recognize Xiao Chun. Xiao Chun remained expressionless when he heard the words of the three half-saints. With a thought, the dustless sword instantly appeared in his hand. Without another word, he charged toward the three half-saints. There wasn't much time, so he had to end the battle quickly. Therefore, Xiao Chun didn't show any mercy. He went all out from the get-go in order to kill all three half-saints in the shortest time possible and leave with the barbarian god fruit. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 14:14. Half-saint experts could be said to be unable to withstand a single blow from Xiao Chun. Although they had the same cultivation, the difference in strength was like the difference between heaven and earth. Therefore, the three half-saint experts could only withstand 10 moves from Xiao Chun before they were killed by Xiao Chun. After killing one saint and 3 half-saint experts who were in charge of guarding the barbarian god fruit, Xiao Chun leaped up and grabbed the barbarian god fruit. He threw it into his storage ring and disappeared into the darkness. Everything went smoothly. After Xiao Chun escaped with the barbarian god fruit, only 10 minutes had passed before the numerous barbarian tribe experts who had gone to chase after Xiao Chun finally returned. They had indeed chased the heavenly race experts far away. Just when the barbarian race experts thought that it was time for them to reap the rewards, who would have thought that when they returned, they would see the corpses of 4 barbarian race experts and the missing barbarian god fruit. They had been betrayed. The 2 barbarian quasi-saint great sovereigns immediately reacted. Their faces instantly darkened and their auras soared into the sky. The terrifying pressure made it difficult for the surrounding people to resist. Damn it, who is it? Find him, you must find him for me. The barbarian god fruit, such a precious treasure, had actually been snatched away by someone. This made the barbarian race experts burn with anger. What a joke! They had fought fiercely with the heavenly race for so long and spent so much effort to repel them. Who would have thought that in the end, they had made a wedding dress for someone else? Overnight, many barbarian race experts launched a search. Anyone suspicious had to be interrogated, including the barbarian race experts. Unfortunately, although many barbarian race experts were doing their best to search for the thief, Xiao Chun had already escaped far away from the heavenly race's territory with the barbarian god fruit. After obtaining the barbarian god fruit, Xiao Chun didn't stop at all and directly escaped to the heavenly race's territory. After several days of searching, the barbarian race experts found nothing. They didn't even find a suspicious person. There were no clues at all. Such an outcome naturally infuriated the 2 barbarian quasi-saint great sovereigns. However, what could they do? They had almost turned over half of the Sky Barbarian mountain range, but found nothing. In the end, the barbarian race experts could only leave the matter unsettled. However, they firmly remembered this moment in their hearts. They swore that if they had the chance to meet this thief in the future, they would cut him into pieces to vent their hatred. Xiao Chun didn't know that. Of course, Xiao Chun wasn't interested in finding out. After several days of traveling, Xiao Chun had finally entered the heavenly race's territory. After traveling for several days, Xiao Chun had finally entered the heavenly race's territory. When Xiao Chun entered the territory of the Celestials, he was also interrogated by the Celestials. However, after Xiao Chun explained his identity and intentions, the Celestials did not make things difficult for Xiao Chun and allowed him to pass without hesitation. After all, it was a very normal thing for the holy son of the saint ranking to travel between the major races. There was no need to stop him. Along the way into the heavenly race's territory, To be honest, there was no difference between the heavenly race and the human race. Other than the heavenly race's unique heavenly race mark on the forehead, the human race and the heavenly race's names were almost exactly the same. Moreover, even if it was the heavenly race mark, it wouldn't appear if one didn't activate their spiritual power. Therefore, after Shao Chen entered the heavenly race's territory, as long as Shao Chen didn't take the initiative to expose his aura, ordinary heavenly race people wouldn't be able to detect Shao Chen's human race identity. Of course, this was only for ordinary heavenly race cultivators. If they encountered heavenly race experts, they would also be able to see Shao Chen's human race identity. However, with Shao Chen's current cultivation realm and strength, he had to be at least a quasi-saint great sovereign to be able to do this. Everything was peaceful along the way. Wherever Shao Chen passed, many heavenly race people only treated Shao Chen as a member of the heavenly race, which saved them a lot of trouble. 3 days later, Shao Chen arrived at a city called Ethereal City. Ethereal City was located in the northwest of the heavenly race's territory and could be considered the largest city in the northwest. After arriving at Ethereal City, Shao Chen wasn't in a hurry to continue his journey. Instead, he planned to refine the barbarian saint fruit and raise the level of his tempered battle body first. There was still plenty of time. Only less than a year had passed from the 3 years that Long Yang had mentioned. In this way, Shao Chen had time to cultivate. Moreover, the most important thing was to increase his strength during this experience. As for raising his ranking on the saint ranking, it was actually just a matter of convenience. After all, if one's strength was sufficient, then their ranking on the saint ranking would naturally rise. There was no need to force it. On the other hand, if one didn't have strength and still stared at the ranking on the saint ranking and daydreamed, then one could only daydream. He knew what was important and what was important. Therefore, Shao Chen placed more importance on his own strength and not the so-called ranking on the saint ranking. He strolled around Ethereal City. As a large city of the heavenly race, Ethereal City's scale was quite good and the city was very lively. On the streets, there were crowds of people coming and going, as well as the sound of hawking that reverberated in the ears. All of this showed the prosperity of the city. Just as Shao Chen was looking for an inn, the sound of horse hooves came from behind him. A young lady in a red dress was leading the way, followed by several young men who looked like guards. They were rushing over from afar. One had to know that this was a crowded street. It was easy to injure people by riding a horse here. Moreover, the young lady wasn't riding an ordinary horse. It was a dragon horse, a mystical horse that contained a trace of the bloodline of the true dragon. The dragon horse had great strength and was extremely fast. It could even be compared to a saint realm expert. At the same time, its physical strength far exceeded that of a saint. The price of a dragon horse was very high. Since this young lady was able to own one, it seemed that her identity wasn't simple. However, Shao Chen didn't care about this now. Seeing the young lady galloping over, Shao Chen didn't have any intention of dodging. When the young lady had rushed up to him, a cold light flashed in Shao Chen's eyes. Then, a strong aura shot up to the sky from his body. Shao Chen originally had the true dragon blood essence in his body. The true dragon blood essence had strengthened the physical body of the dragon clan. Now that it had penetrated deep into Shao Chen's bone marrow, it had erupted. It definitely had a terrifying suppressive effect on the dragon horse. With the true dragon blood essence in Shao Chen's body, it was impossible to suppress other beasts. However, it had the most effective suppressive effect on demonic beasts like the dragon horse, which had a trace of the true dragon blood essence in its body. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 14-15. A terrifying aura instantly soared into the sky. Sensing Shao Chen's intense pressure, the dragon horse that the young girl was riding immediately stumbled and fell to the ground. To be honest, the dragon horse was not considered very powerful. The reason why it was so valuable was entirely because of its impressive appearance, super endurance, and speed. Many people rode the dragon horse only because it was a symbol of their status. There was a faint chill in his eyes. This young girl dared to gallop wildly on such a crowded street. It was obvious that she did not care about the lives of others. Moreover, when this young girl had rushed over on her horse, Xiao Chen was certain that she had no intention of stopping at all. She had clearly seen him standing there, but the young girl still did not stop. It was obvious that she did not care about his life at all. If Xiao Chen had been a person with no cultivation or a low cultivation, he would have probably been knocked to death. She did not care about others and did not know the severity of the situation. That was why Xiao Chen had decided to teach this young girl a lesson. However, as Xiao Chen's aura was exposed, the surrounding divine clan members all looked at Xiao Chen with strange expressions. Judging from the aura just now, Xiao Chen was definitely from the human clan and not the divine clan. His identity had been exposed, but Xiao Chen did not care at all. There was no difference whether his identity was exposed or not. Moreover, his identity would be exposed sooner or later. Ignoring the gazes of the surrounding people, Xiao Chen stared coldly at the young girl in front of him. In terms of looks, the young girl was not bad. At the very least, she was a beauty. However, Xiao Chen did not care about that. Facing Xiao Chen's cold gaze, the young girl who had fallen to the ground stood up angrily and scolded him in a delicate voice. "Do you want to die?" She did not realize her mistake at all. On the contrary, she blamed everything on Xiao Chen. As she spoke, the young girl had already stood up and angrily walked towards Xiao Chen. At the same time, 4 guards with similarly unfriendly expressions followed behind her. Looking at the young girl's appearance, the people around Xiao Chen subconsciously retreated a distance away. It was obvious that they were very afraid of this young girl. It's over. This human is finished. After offending the Mo family, he's dead for sure. He's definitely dead for sure. To think that a mere human like him would dare to offend the Mo family in the floating mist city. If he doesn't die, who will? As the crowd retreated, they discussed in whispers. Clearly, the young lady's status was very noble in Misty City. Nobody dared to provoke her. Actually, the young woman's name was Mo Lu Bai, and she was the little princess of Misty City's Mo clan. As for the Mo clan, it was the #1 clan in Misty City, and it could be considered a quasi-saint clan. It was precisely because of the strength of the Mo clan that Mo Lu Bai could be said to be used to being arrogant and willful in Ethereal City. Galloping wildly in the city was merely a small matter. Therefore, everyone was used to it. However, the people of the Misty Kingdom could indulge Mo Lu Bai, but Xiao Chen obviously wouldn't. Not to mention the fact that the Mo clan was only a quasi-sage clan, so what if the Mo clan had a half-step great sage? Xiao Chen was a holy disciple of the saint rankings. Who among the older generation would dare to make a move against Xiao Chen? To be honest, Xiao Chen wasn't afraid of saint stage experts at all. Therefore, when faced with the aggressive Mo Lu Bai, Xiao Chen's expression naturally didn't change in the slightest as he looked at her. Mo Lu Bai took a few steps forward and arrived in front of Xiao Chen. Her eyes were filled with killing intent as she shouted, "Human, are you courting death? Good, very good. This young lady will fulfill your wish. Seize him for me." Mo Lu Bai ordered the 4 guards behind her to seize Xiao Chen without asking any questions. When he heard that, the coldness in Xiao Chen's eyes grew even denser. When he saw the 4 Mo clan guards walking towards him, Xiao Chen said indifferently, "I don't want to kill anyone, so it's best if you don't do anything." He'd only acted just now because Mo Lu Bai clearly intended to smash him to death. Yet now, Xiao Chen didn't want to make a big deal out of the matter. After all, it was very troublesome. Unfortunately, Xiao Chen's words were clearly of no use. The 4 guards didn't take Xiao Chen seriously at all, and the leader immediately grabbed at Xiao Chen. The 4 guards were merely at the Dao Emperor realm, and they were merely at the entry level. So, their combat strengths were extremely ordinary. Such people were no different than ants before Shao Chun. Unfortunately, these 4 ants were actually courting death and intended to make a move against Shao Chun. A wisp of killing intent flashed through Shao Chun's eyes when he saw the leader grab at him. After that, the laws of gravity instantly erupted, and the 4 of them were immediately pressed down to the ground. The 4 of them lay flat on the ground, and it was like a mountain was pressing down upon them. The ground had cracked inch by inch from the pressure, but Shao Chun had no intention of letting go. He looked down from above and gazed indifferently at the 4 guards as he spoke slowly. I gave all of you a chance. Unfortunately, all of you didn't take it. As he spoke, Shao Chun exerted more force with the laws of gravity, and then the 4 guards were forcefully crushed apart by the terrifying force of the laws of gravity. Blood sprayed into the air, and not even corpses were left behind. Only 4 piles of minced meat were left behind. Mo Lu Bai was horrified when he saw Shao Chun actually dared to kill 4 of his guards. However, as the little princess of the Mo clan, he couldn't do anything because someone dared to make a move against him in Mist City. He immediately looked at Shao Chun and shouted, "You dare kill a member of my Mo clan? You're dead." Shao Chun had actually heard a little about the Mo family. After all, as the number 1 family in Piaomiao City, the Mo family was obviously very famous in Piaomiao City. Shao Chun had heard a lot of rumors about the Mo family almost as soon as he entered the city. When he heard Mo Liu Bai's words, Shao Chun sneered and said, "Mo clan? Heh, others might be afraid of your Mo clan, but I'm not. Also, your mouth is a little dirty. I'll help you change it." Mo Liu Bai was a classic example of a spoiled and unruly girl. Such a woman might not have a bad heart, but Shao Chun wasn't interested in talking nonsense with her. Moreover, Shao Chun wasn't interested in coaxing a child. Therefore, Shao Chun used the most direct method to deal with Mo Liu Bai. As soon as he finished speaking, Shao Chun's figure instantly appeared in front of Mo Liu Bai. Then, he slapped her. With a slap, a bright red handprint appeared on Mo Liu Bai's face. She was slapped. The little princess of the Mo clan was actually slapped in public. When they saw Shao Chun's actions, the surrounding people were stunned on the spot. Even Mo Liu Bai was stunned. She even forgot about the burning pain on her face. She hadn't been slapped since she was young, so Mo Liu Bai didn't dare to believe that she was actually slapped. Moreover, it was in Mist City. Moreover, the person who slapped her was a human cultivator. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 14-16. After the slap, Shao Chun couldn't be bothered to lower himself to Mo Liu Bai's level. The reason he attacked was entirely because he thought Mo Liu Bai had a foul mouth. Otherwise, Shao Chun wouldn't have any interest in hitting a girl. Mo Liu Bai returned to her senses when she saw Shao Chun turn around to leave. She immediately used a voice transmission talisman to ask for help from her family. At the same time, she shouted at Shao Chun with a face full of killing intent. "You dare hit me? If I don't cripple you today, I won't be Mo Liu Bai." Shao Chun already saw Mo Liu Bai use a voice transmission talisman, so he didn't even need to ask. He knew what it was used for. Shao Chun turned around to look at Mo Liu Bai and said indifferently, "Are you sure you want me to stay? Do you think you can still leave?" Mo Liu Bai snorted coldly, and the killing intent in her eyes grew even denser. To put it bluntly, a woman like Mo Liu Bai never knew the immensity of heaven and earth. She only thought that she could be lawless because she was a member of the Mo family. Little did she know that there were many forces in the central world that could casually destroy the Mo family. To put it bluntly, the Mo family was the weakest even among the quasi-saint forces because they only had one quasi-saint supreme sovereign, and he was only at the entry stage. With such strength, it was no wonder that the Mo family could only act like a tyrant in Misty City. Unfortunately, Mo Lu Bai didn't realize this at all. It wasn't a big deal, but since Mo Lu Bai was unwilling to let it go, Xiao Chen would play with her until the end. In any case, this matter couldn't be resolved in one go. It would be even more troublesome when the time came. Completely ignoring Mo Lu Bai's murderous gaze, Xiao Chen didn't leave and just waited quietly. He wanted to see what exactly the Mo family was going to do. Seeing that Xiao Chen had actually collided with Mo Lu Bai, the numerous celestial race members in the surroundings were puzzled. Wasn't this purely courting death? A human warrior in the celestial clan had no backing in the first place, yet Xiao Chen was still so unscrupulous. They didn't understand where Xiao Chen's confidence came from, but they clearly didn't expect that Xiao Chen wasn't without a backer. His backer was the will of the heavenly way. As a chosen on the saint rankings, Xiao Chen had nothing to fear with the will of the heavenly way protecting him. Mo Lu Bai didn't dare to attack Xiao Chen. He stared at Xiao Chen with killing intent as if he wanted to cut Xiao Chen into pieces. The two of them looked at each other. A few hundred breaths later, a middle-aged man appeared beside Mo Lu Bai. The many surrounding Tian clan members softly spoke when they saw this middle-aged man appear. Mo family's third master, the middle-aged man, was Mo Lu Bai's third uncle. Because he was ranked third in the Mo family, the people of Ethereal City called him Third Master Mo. Third Master Mo was at the initial sage stage and thought that he was a powerhouse. However, in Xiao Chen's opinion, this bit of cultivation was really not enough. There was a saying that if you weren't of the same family, you wouldn't enter the same family. Third Master Mo didn't ask Mo Lu Bai what had happened. Instead, he locked his gaze on Xiao Chen and shouted coldly, "Human clan cultivator? Kid, do you know what you're doing? How dare you offend my Mo family in Ethereal City and attack Lu Bai? I think you really don't know what's good for you." He didn't dare to be right or wrong. In any case, in Third Master Mo's opinion, it was Xiao Chen's fault no matter what. Hearing this, Xiao Chen sneered and said, "What a family! You're all so unreasonable. You don't know what you're talking about." "What did you say?" Third Master Mo shouted in a deep voice. As soon as Third Master Mo said that, Mo Lu Bai said coldly, "Third uncle, why are you talking so much to him? Kill him. I want his head." Mo Lu Bai's murderous intent towards Xiao Chen had reached its peak. He didn't want to waste his breath on Xiao Chen at all. Upon hearing Mo Lu Bai's words, Third Master Mo immediately attacked and threw a punch at Xiao Chen. Facing Third Master Mo's attack, Xiao Chen didn't move at all. It was as though he had been scared silly. Could it be that this brat has been scared silly? Yeah, he's not even dodging? Sigh, it seems like he's another fool who doesn't know what's good for him. Everyone thought that Xiao Chen was scared silly. But just as Third Master Mo's fist was about to hit Xiao Chen, a long sword flickering with a faint golden light appeared in Xiao Chen's hand out of thin air. With the dustless sword in hand, Xiao Chen faced Third Lord Mo's fist with a slash of his sword. The scorching sun swordsmanship was displayed immediately. That terrifying flame's spiritual power gushed out and instantly turned the surroundings into a sea of fire. At the same time, the flaming sword radiance struck Third Master Mo with irresistible force. Third Master Mo, who was full of confidence, had a drastic change in expression the moment Xiao Chen attacked. An aura of death enveloped Third Master Mo completely. He cursed in his heart, "Oh no! This kid, how is it possible?" Xiao Chen was clearly only in the half-saint realm, but he was so powerful. Even a saint like Third Master Mo couldn't resist the might of his sword. "I can't block it. I definitely can't block Xiao Chen's sword." This was what Third Master Mo thought. He didn't dare to take it head-on, but it was already too late for him to dodge. He could almost see his end. But at the last moment, a green light flashed and collided fiercely with Xiao Chen's scorching sun sword technique. The two attacks cancelled each other out. Along with the collision of these two attacks, An old man's figure appeared by Mo Liubai's side. It was this old man who'd made a move just now and saved Third Master Mo Liubai called out happily when he saw the old man. Ancestor. The old man was none other than the Mo family's ancestor. At the same time, he was also the Mo family's only quasi-saint great sovereign. Normally, the Mo family's ancestor wouldn't appear for such trivial matters. But when he sensed Xiao Chen's terrifying aura, he didn't think much and rushed over. Fortunately, the Mo family's ancestor came. Otherwise, Third Master Mo's life would have been in danger. He had always doted on his granddaughter, Mo Liubai. But at this moment, the Mo family's ancestor ignored Mo Liubai's call as if he didn't hear her at all. A pair of turbid eyes stared fixedly at Xiao Chen. After a long while, the Mo family's ancestor finally spoke. Young friend, are you a chosen of the holy rankings? The older the ginger, the spicier it was. The Mo family's ancestor had lived for so many years, so he was naturally much stronger than the two idiots, Mo Liubai and Third Master Mo. The Mo family's ancestor couldn't think of any other explanation for Xiao Chen possessing such combat strength at such a young age. Begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 14-17. The two idiots, Mo Liubai and Third Master Mo, had never thought that Xiao Chen would possess such strength at such a young age. He had even defeated Third Master Mo, who was already a saint stage expert, with a single strike. Only a chosen of the saint rankings could possess such strength in the younger generation. Therefore, the Mo family's ancestor didn't attack directly. Instead, he asked Xiao Chen politely. Xiao Chen naturally knew what the Mo family's ancestor meant and replied indifferently, Xiao Chen on the saint rankings. Xiao Chen? The Mo family's ancestor's expression immediately changed when he heard that. He was definitely familiar with the name Xiao Chen. It wasn't just him, Mo Liubai and Third Master Mo were the same as well. If one were to ask who the most eye-catching chosen of the saint rankings was in the past year, everyone would definitely answer Xiao Chen without hesitation. It couldn't be helped. In the past year, Xiao Chen had practically turned the entire saint rankings upside down. Every time the saint rankings appeared, it practically meant that Xiao Chen's ranking would definitely rise again. How could everyone who was so active on the saint rankings not know about him? Therefore, everyone was shocked when they heard Xiao Chen's words. At the same time, they understood why Xiao Chen wasn't afraid of the Mo family at all. It was very normal. Xiao Chen was a chosen of the saint rankings. Would the Mo family's ancestor dare to attack him? Moreover, even if the Mo family's ancestor really dared to exchange his life for Xiao Chen's and attack Xiao Chen, it didn't mean that the Mo family's ancestor could really kill Xiao Chen. Even though Xiao Chen was only at the half-saint stage, the saints on the saint rankings were famous for having a lot of trump cards. In particular, they had all sorts of life-saving methods. A saint stage expert wasn't a threat to Xiao Chen at all. The Mo family only had a quasi-saint stage expert, and he was only at the entry stage. If they really fought, even if Xiao Chen wasn't a match for them, his chances of escaping were still very high. Xiao Chen wasn't afraid of the Mo clan, not because he didn't know what was good for him, but because he really had the confidence to do so. He stared at Xiao Chen with a grave expression. After a while, the Mo family patriarch suddenly smiled and cupped his hands towards Xiao Chen. So it's sacred son Xiao Chen. I hope the sacred son does not take offense. Clearly, the ancestor of the Mo clan was unwilling to form a grudge with Xiao Chen. Upon hearing this, Xiao Chen waved his hand in an unconcerned manner and said, "There is no need to talk about this. What do you think about this matter? Is your Mo family going to continue pestering me?" He wasn't interested in the Mo family at all, so Xiao Chen couldn't be bothered to waste his breath on the Mo family patriarch. If the Mo family wanted to continue pestering him, then Xiao Chen would accompany them to the end. If not, then Xiao would leave. Originally, he only wanted to teach Mo Lubai a lesson and didn't have any other intentions. The Mo family patriarch immediately replied with a smile when he heard Xiao words. Sacred son must be joking. It's my Mo family's fault. Lubai, why aren't you apologizing to the sacred son? The Mo clan's ancestor was naturally clearly aware of his granddaughter's character. He didn't have to ask at all before he was able to guess that his granddaughter had definitely instigated this matter. In the past, Mo Lubai had caused quite a bit of trouble in Misty City. Mo Lubai was naturally unwilling to accept this when he heard his patriarch's words. He stood on the spot with an unwilling expression and didn't listen to his patriarch. The Mo family patriarch's face sank when he saw that Mo Lubai actually dared to disobey him. He immediately opened his mouth to berate Mo Lubai, but Xiao spoke first. Forget it. If that's the case, then so be it. It doesn't matter if you apologize or not. However, there's something I want to remind your Mo family. This is the first time, but it's best if there isn't a second time. If your Mo family comes to provoke me again, then I won't be so easy to deal with. After speaking, Xiao turned around and left without waiting for the Mo family patriarch's reply. Xiao didn't want to get entangled with the Mo family. As long as they didn't provoke him, Xiao couldn't be bothered to deal with them. The matter between Xiao and the Mo family had naturally spread throughout Misty City very quickly after a single person had suppressed an entire Misty City. Through this matter, everyone felt how terrifying a chosen on the hallowed ranking was. It wasn't just because of his strength, it was also because of his status. Even in other territories, a chosen on the hallowed ranking could still suppress an entire Misty Saint clan. News of Xiao matter had already spread in the outside world. As the person involved, Xiao found an inn and sat cross-legged on the bed, as he planned to refine the barbarian god fruit. At night, Xiao eyesight improved. Xiao had already eaten the barbarian god fruit and was currently refining the energy within it. Since it was a treasure that specialized in tempering the body, refining it naturally wouldn't be easy. Just like right now, Xiao body was constantly throbbing with intense pain. Although Xiao could endure the pain, it was still very uncomfortable. While Xiao was refining the barbarian god fruit, Mo Lubai had naturally been fiercely reprimanded by the Mo family's ancestor after he returned during the day. Although he doted on Mo Lubai, the Mo family's ancestor clearly wouldn't bury the entire Mo family because of Mo Lubai. So this time, the Mo family's ancestor didn't show any mercy and even gave an order to confine Mo Lubai from leaving the Mo family's residence during this period of time. Mo Lubai was naturally unwilling to accept being reprimanded by the Mo family's ancestor, so she blamed everything on Xiao. Mo Lubai hadn't learned her lesson after what had happened during the day. Or rather, her killing intent towards Xiao hadn't decreased at all. On the contrary, her killing intent towards Xiao had grown even stronger because of the Mo family's ancestor's reprimand. Deep into the night, Mo Lubai's eyes flickered with dense killing intent as she sat alone in her room. A short while later, Mo Lubai took out a voice transmission talisman and used it. The voice transmission talisman was for Mo Lubai's older brother, Mo Juedai. The Mo family was a mighty quasi-saint clan, but the person who truly made the Mo family known to the world, or the person who truly made the Mo family the #1 clan in Mist City, wasn't the Mo family's ancestor, but Mo Juedai. Mo Juedai was extremely famous in the entire celestial race because he was a chosen on the hallowed rankings like Xiao. Moreover, his ranking was even higher than Xiao as he'd already reached the 45th position. Such an outstanding chosen on the hallowed rankings was actually born in the tiny Mo family. This naturally caused the Mo family's status to soar. He joined the only great saint faction in the celestial race at a young age and cultivated in the heavenly palace. Now, He was already a chosen on the hallowed rankings who'd made a name for himself for many years. Mo Lu Bai was determined to kill Xiao Chen, so she didn't hesitate at all and directly sent a message to her older brother, Mo Juedai. Were the chosen on the hallowed rankings very powerful? It wasn't like their Mo family didn't have any. Moreover, Mo Juedai's ranking was even higher than Xiao Chen's. In Mo Liu Bai's opinion, if her older brother made a move, then Xiao Chen would definitely die. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 14:18. The Great Sage Heavenly Palace was the only great sage sect in the celestial race. It was overseen by 3 great sages. Compared to the other races, the celestial race was much more peaceful. The most important reason for this was that there was only one great sage sect in the celestial race. Basically, as long as the Heavenly Palace said the word, no one in the celestial race would dare to oppose it. The Heavenly Palace was indeed worthy of its name in the heaven region. The entire Heavenly Palace was built above the clouds in the sky. Beautiful palaces were located thousands of miles above the ground, as if they were built on white clouds. The entire celestial palace was beautiful and magnificent, indeed worthy of the name Celestial Palace. At this time, a handsome young man was sitting cross-legged on top of the clouds. At this time, a sound transmission talisman broke through the air. After listening to the contents of the sound transmission talisman, the young man slowly opened his eyes. A strange glint flashed in his eyes. Then, he chuckled softly. This little sister. The young man was none other than the 45th on the Saint rankings, Mo Juedai. After receiving Mo Liu Bai's message, Mo Juedai also knew what happened in Mist City. However, he was very clear about his little sister's personality. Although Mo Liu Bai blamed everything on Xiao Chen, Mo Juedai knew very well that Mo Liu Bai was exaggerating. Everyone in Misty City knew of Mo Liu Bai's lawlessness. Mo Juedai had once scolded her as well. However, Mo Liu Bai had been spoiled since she was young, so it was impossible for her to change her temper. So, Mo Juedai had given up after trying a few times. If she was unruly, then so be it. No matter what, she was still his little sister. Mo Juedai let her be. However, perhaps it was because of Mo Juedai and the other Mo family members' indulgence that Mo Liu Bai became more and more lawless. She didn't have the slightest respect in her heart. She always felt that since she was the young miss of the Mo family, no one in this world would dare to provoke her. This time, it was clearly something that could have been avoided, but Mo Liu Bai just had to offend Xiao Chen. Moreover, even after the Mo family's ancestor persuaded her, Mo Liu Bai still had no intention of letting go. She still wanted to fight to the death with Xiao Chen. Of course, Mo Juedai didn't know that his ancestor had already made a decision on this matter. From Mo Liu Bai's message, it was completely clear that Xiao Chen wasn't willing to let go. He was determined to make things difficult for the Mo family. Mo Juedai's eyes flickered with an indescribable light. He sighed softly before slowly getting up and speaking in an indifferent manner. Forget it. Let's go back and take a look. In any case, it has been a long time since we last went back. Regardless of whether Mo Liu Bai was telling the truth or not, Mo Juedai still intended to return and take a look. Ever since he became a holy disciple on the hallowed rankings, the number of times he returned home had decreased. The last time he returned to Misty City seemed to have been 5 years ago. Although Mo Liu Bai was unruly, she couldn't be bullied as she wished. Mo Juedai wasn't afraid if Xiao Chen really didn't want to let go. After making up his mind, Mo Juedai replied to Mo Liu Bai. He said that he would return to Misty City in 3 days. Mo Liu Bai, who was in the Mo family in Misty City, quickly received Mo Juedai's reply. A cold smile immediately appeared on his face. It was as though he could already see the scene of Xiao Chen being beaten up by Mo Juedai. Humph! Xiao Chen, let's see how long you can be happy for. Mo Lu Bai snorted coldly. Then, he went to cultivate in satisfaction. It had to be said that Mo Lu Bai was a little petty. It was clearly a very simple matter. Moreover, the matter had almost come to an end after the ancestor of the Mo family had spoken. However, Mo Lu Bai refused to let go and even called Mo Juedai over. Xiao Chen didn't know about Mo Juedai. Although he had heard of this person, Xiao Chen didn't associate Mo Juedai with the Mo family in Misty City. Xiao Chen was still cultivating in seclusion in the inn. The barbarian god fruit was indeed terrifying. His tempered battle body couldn't improve in the slightest in the past. However, with the help of the barbarian god fruit, Xiao Chen could clearly feel his tempered battle body improving. Although the speed was still very slow, it was enough to make Xiao Chen overjoyed. Feeling the steady improvement of the tempered battle body, Xiao Chen was also extremely excited. With this barbarian god fruit, Xiao Chen was sure that his tempered battle body could reach the limit of the third celestial realm. As for whether he could reach the fourth celestial realm, it was hard to say, but the chances were slim. But even so, it was enough to strengthen Xiao Chen's tempered battle body by a large margin. One had to know that even though Xiao Chen hadn't slacked off on cultivating his tempered battle body, his progress was very weak. It was far inferior to this seclusion. Cultivating the tempered battle body required the accumulation of countless resources. This was something that Xiao Chen knew from the beginning. At the very least, this barbarian god fruit could save Xiao Chen several decades of bitter cultivation. Without the fruit of the barbarian god, it would have taken Xiao Chen at least decades of training to bring the tempered battle body to the limit of the third celestial level. However, with the fruit of the barbarian god, things were completely different. He could bring his celestial level to the limit in just a few days. 4 days passed in a row. After several days of seclusion, Xiao Chen successfully refined the barbarian god fruit. Xiao Chen's body was already extremely tough, so the speed at which he refined the barbarian god fruit was extremely fast. The result was similar to what Xiao Chen had expected. His tempered battle body had indeed reached the limit of the third heavenly layer. In terms of physical strength alone, it had more than doubled compared to before. His physical strength had undergone an earth-shattering change once again. Xiao Chen's strength had naturally increased as well. It was no exaggeration to say that Xiao Chen's body was probably comparable to Wang Lushan's. As the holy son of the barbarians, Wang Lushan's physical strength was his forte. Xiao Chen, on the other hand, was a human, but his physical strength was no weaker than Wang Lushan's. That was a little scary. After the seclusion ended, Xiao Chen's skin was covered with a layer of black impurities. These were the impurities that came out after the barbarian god fruit cleansed his body. It had a fishy smell. After freshening up and changing into a clean set of clothes, Xiao Chen was in a good mood. He opened the door and planned to go out for a walk. After staying in the Misty City for a long time, Xiao Chen also planned to leave. The improvement of his physical strength had caused Xiao Chen's combat strength to soar. There was no point in continuing to stay in the Misty City. Xiao Chen actually didn't care about the Mo family anymore. Xiao Chen had previously said that as long as the Mo family didn't cause trouble for him, he wouldn't cause trouble for the Mo family either. Originally, he thought that this matter would be over. However, just as Xiao Chen walked out of the inn, he heard a delicate voice. "Xiao Chen, stop right there. Please collect, please vote, please recommend me." Chapter 14-19. Xiao Chen had originally intended to take a breather and leave Misty City tomorrow. But who would have imagined that as soon as he walked out of the inn, he would see Mo Lu Bai and a white-clothed young man blocking his path. Mo Lu Bai even had her hands on her hips as she shouted in an unruly manner. Xiao Chen frowned slightly when he heard Mo Lu Bai. To be honest, Xiao Chen hadn't taken the Mo clan's matter to heart when he'd charged over. But now it seemed like Mo Lu Bai was determined to cause trouble for him? It was just a small conflict, but Mo Lu Bai refused to let it go, and it caused the rage in Xiao Chen's heart to surge. Earlier, he didn't want to cause trouble, and the Mo clan's ancestor knew when to back down, so Xiao Chen had let it go. But now, after just a few days, Mo Lu Bai had actually come looking for trouble again. This naturally infuriated Xiao Chen. His expression was calm, but a wisp of cold light flickered in his eyes as he said, as expected, a dog really can't change its habit. I said last time that the matter ends here. If your Mo clan doesn't look for trouble with me, then I absolutely won't look for trouble with your Mo clan. But now it seems like you've ignored my words. Mo Lu Bai's repeated provocations had caused a wisp of killing intent to arise in Xiao Chen's heart. This woman simply doesn't know the immensity of the heavens and the earth, and she's narrow-minded like a needle. Xiao Chen was sure that Mo Lu Bai would definitely bear a grudge against him because of such a simple matter, and she would definitely cause a lot of trouble for him in the future. Since that was the case, then he might as well deal with her here and be done with it once and for all. Even though he didn't want to become enemies with the Mo clan, it didn't mean that Xiao Chen was afraid of the Mo clan. Even though the Mo clan was a mighty quasi-saint clan, it merely had a single quasi-saint supreme venerable in the entire clan, and he was merely at the entry level of the quasi-saint realm. Even though he didn't dare say that he was a match for the Mo clan's ancestor, the Mo clan's ancestor absolutely wouldn't be able to stop Xiao Chen if he wanted to leave. As for the saints of the Mo clan, Xiao Chen didn't care about them at all. Xiao Chen could casually kill a saint like Third Master Mo, so there was nothing to fear. Xiao Chen possessed the ability to not fear the Mo clan, so he was filled with killing intent. When he sensed a faint killing intent emanating from Xiao Chen's body, the expression of the young man by Mo Lu Bai's side immediately changed. This young man was none other than Mo Juedai. He had returned to Misty City last night and met his sister. This morning, Mo Lu Bai impatiently brought Mo Juedai to find Xiao Chen. He'd originally thought that it was just a simple matter of getting back some face for Mo Lu Bai, but now it seemed like it wasn't so simple. Mo Juedai's original plan was very simple. Since Mo Lu Bai still had a knot in his heart, then he would make Xiao Chen lower his head and admit his mistake. With Mo Juedai's identity and status, it shouldn't be difficult for him to make Xiao Chen give him face. So long as Mo Lu Bai was appeased, then wouldn't the matter be resolved? Unfortunately, Mo Juedai had thought of the matter too simply. Or perhaps it should be said that he'd thought of Xiao Chen too simply. If it was anyone else, perhaps they would give Mo Juedai face, but Xiao Chen absolutely wouldn't. So, when he sensed the faint killing intent emanating from Xiao Chen, Mo Juedai immediately took a step forward and protected Mo Lu Bai behind him. Mo Juedai was extremely sensitive to killing intent, so he didn't doubt that Xiao Chen really wanted to kill Mo Lu Bai. Besides, Xiao Chen really dared to do so. Mo Juedai stared fixedly at Xiao Chen and raised his guard nervously. However, Xiao Chen's killing intent didn't decrease in the face of Mo Juedai's obstruction. No matter who Mo Juedai was, Xiao Chen already had the intention to kill him. Xiao Chen wouldn't give a woman like Mo Lu Bai face. Besides, Xiao Chen had said that there was only one chance. Since she was so eager to court death, Xiao Chen naturally wouldn't hold back. Mo Juedai shifted his feet and instantly executed the absolute Yin footwork. Upon seeing that Xiao Chen had actually attacked, a terrifying aura soared from his body. At the same time, he let out a furious roar. Xiao Chen, how dare you! Prior to this, Mo Juedai had heard of Xiao Chen's name and knew that Xiao Chen had been extremely outstanding on the saint rankings for the past year. However, Mo Juedai didn't expect Xiao Chen to be so bold. Even though they were in Ethereal City, Xiao Chen actually dared to kill his younger sister in front of him. This was definitely an extremely audacious move. If it were any other ordinary person, perhaps they wouldn't even make a move. However, Xiao Chen had made a move and didn't hold back at all. Xiao Chen let out a furious roar, but he didn't care about Emo Juedai at all. Instead, he threw a punch forward. Seeing this, Emo Juedai didn't dodge because once he dodged, Emo Lubai would be exposed before Xiao Chen. Therefore, Emo Juedai couldn't dodge Xiao Chen's attack and could only choose to take it head-on. Facing Xiao Chen's fist, Emo Juedai also threw a punch forward. In a loud bang, their fists collided fiercely. In an instant, the surrounding houses were flattened by a terrifying shockwave. The surrounding crowd was stupefied. They stood on the spot blankly and even forgot to escape. Their fists collided head-on. What Emo Juedai hadn't expected was that the distance between Xiao Chen's fist and Xiao Chen's fist would cause his body to involuntarily take a dozen steps back. Emo Juedai forced him to retreat with a single punch. Emo Juedai muttered to himself in disbelief. Impossible. Earlier on, Emo Juedai and Xiao Chen didn't use any martial skills, but Xiao Chen's physical strength completely crushed Emo Juedai. He couldn't believe that Xiao Chen was actually that strong. However, just as Emo Juedai retreated, Emo Lubai was completely exposed before Xiao Chen. Without holding back, Xiao Chen threw out another punch. A dense aura of death instantly enveloped Emo Lubai. In the face of death, the unruly little princess of the Emo family finally had a huge change in expression. Emo Lubai had never felt that he was so close to death. Emo Lubai had never thought that he could be killed by someone, let alone in front of his elder brother, Emo Juedai. Emo Lubai's body seemed to be out of his control as he stood blankly on the spot. He was completely scared out of his wits as he watched Xiao Chen's fist fly toward him. Emo Juedai, who had just stabilized himself, shouted at Xiao Chen with a huge change in expression. "Xiao Chen, stop. We can sit down and discuss this matter. My Emo family can apologize for what happened to my younger sister." It was obvious that Xiao Chen's punch wasn't a joke. Therefore, in order to save Emo Lubai's life, Emo Juedai had no choice but to lower his head. But unfortunately, after hearing Emo Juedai's words, Xiao Chen replied coldly. "I said that you only have one chance. Seeking collection, monthly votes, recommendations, rewards." Chapter 1420. Emo Juedai had already lowered his head, but Xiao Chen's fist didn't slow down. Emo Juedai's eyes turned red and he shouted angrily, "Xiao Chen, you dare!" Emo Juedai regretted listening to Emo Lubai's words. He shouldn't have accompanied his younger sister to cause trouble. Originally, this matter was already over, but because of Emo Lubai's stubbornness, the matter had escalated to such an extent that Emo Lubai was about to lose his life. Emo Juedai had a very deep relationship with Emo Lubai. He had cared for Emo Lubai since they were young. Otherwise, he wouldn't have hurried back to Mist City from the Heavenly Palace just because of Emo Lubai's voice transmission talisman. Unfortunately, Emo Juedai didn't expect that he would return this time to personally witness his sister's death. Emo Lubai, who was usually unruly and willful, was completely scared silly. She thought that no one in the world would dare to kill her. Little did she know that there were many people who could kill her. It was just that her status wasn't high enough to reach that level. There was no medicine for regret in this world. Therefore, even if Emo Lubai regretted continuing to pester Xiao Chen, nothing could be changed. She watched as Xiao Chen's fist approached from afar. Then, with a bang, Xiao Chen's fist ruthlessly smashed into Emo Lubai's chest. Her heart meridians were completely severed. Emo Lubai immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. She fell straight to the ground, completely lifeless, dead. Xiao Chen killed the little princess of the Emo family with just one punch. Seeing this scene, the surrounding people couldn't be described as stupefied. They were completely stupefied. At the same time, Emo Juedai stared blankly on the spot when Emo Lubai was blasted to death. Dead? My younger sister died just like that? He didn't dare to believe this scene. Or rather, Mo Juedai didn't want to believe that Xiao Chen had actually killed Mo Liu Bai with one punch right in front of him. Walking up to Mo Liu Bai's corpse, Mo Juedai looked at the wide-eyed Mo Liu Bai, who had died with remaining grievances. Mo Juedai was dumbstruck. However, after a brief moment, a terrifying aura erupted from Mo Juedai's body. He raised his head and looked at Xiao Chen with his scarlet eyes. The killing intent in his eyes was like a volcanic eruption as terrifying spiritual energy frantically swept through the surroundings. Some of the weaker people were directly shaken to death by Mo Juedai's spiritual energy, bleeding from their 7 orifices. Murderous intent, endless murderous intent. At this moment, Mo Juedai was enveloped by endless murderous intent. He stared at Xiao Chen and said word by word. Xiao Chen, you deserve to die. You shouldn't have killed my little sister. Even though she was in the wrong, you cannot kill her. What a joke. Everyone has to be responsible for their own actions. Enough of your bullshit. If you want to fight, then come, Xiao Chen sneered when he heard Mo Juedai's words. The Mo family was also responsible for Mo Liu Bai becoming like this. Why was it that only Mo Liu Bai could kill others and others couldn't kill Mo Liu Bai? What a joke. Through the conversation between Mo Liu Bai and Mo Juedai, Xiao Chen already knew Mo Liu Bai's identity. He was the 45th ranked chosen on the Saint rankings. But so what? Others might be afraid of Mo Juedai, but Xiao Chen wasn't. Moreover, after refining the barbarian god's fruit, Xiao Chen wanted to see how much his strength had increased. Mo Juedai was the best target. He didn't regret killing Mo Liu Bai. Xiao Chen didn't have the habit of retreating. He had already given in before, but Mo Liu Bai still recklessly came to bother him. This was the only outcome. As Xiao Chen spoke, Mo Juedai didn't say anything else. His spatial ring flashed and a long sword appeared in his hand. His feet moved, and he instantly attacked Xiao Chen. Mo Juedai had gone completely crazy because of Mo Liu Bai's death. At this moment, there was only one thought in his mind, and that was to kill Xiao Chen and avenge his sister. His sword domain instantly erupted. Mo Juedai was also a sword cultivator, so Xiao Chen didn't dodge. He also unleashed his sword domain. At the same time, the laws of gravity erupted, and the dustless sword appeared in his hand. The sword domain collided. Both of them erupted with their full strength. They didn't hold back in the slightest. When their swords slashed out, the unique mark of the Tian clan appeared on Mo Juedai's forehead. The power of the Tian clan came from the mark on their forehead. Xiao Chen wasn't unfamiliar with this. He had learned many secrets about the Tian clan from Tian Yu. The tip of the sword slashed out. Mo Juedai's strength was indeed not weak. He was even stronger than Wang Lushan. Of course, Mo Juedai's ranking on the Saint rankings was higher than Wang Lushan's, so it was normal for him to be stronger than Wang Lushan. The Saint rankings of the Central World didn't have any exaggeration. After all, it was created by the will of the Heavenly Way. The ranking represented one's strength. The higher one's ranking, the stronger one's strength was. There was no doubt about this. Mo Juedai's sword strike should be the strongest sword strike Xiao Chen had ever encountered among his peers. He didn't dodge, and similarly slashed out with his sword. The scorching sun sword technique was instantly unleashed. The flaming sword formed from the scorching laws of fire seemed to want to burn everything. With incomparable power, it fiercely collided with Mo Juedai's sword. The collision this time was much more terrifying than the previous one. Almost half of the Misty City was affected by the sword strike. Those who couldn't escape in time were all killed by the terrifying sword intent. As the sword fell, countless Tian clan people died. However, Mo Juedai couldn't care less about this now. He only had one thought in his mind, and that was to kill Xiao Chen. Mo Juedai didn't care about the casualties of the Tian clan, and Xiao Chen didn't care either. In any case, it was the Tian clan, not the human clan. What did it have to do with Xiao Chen? Moreover, Xiao Chen didn't dare to be distracted in the battle with Mo Juedai. Although it was just a simple head-on collision, Mo Juedai's strength had already been fully displayed. He was very strong. It could be said that he was terrifyingly strong. Mo Juedai was also a half-step saint, and was on par with Xiao Chen. When the sword fell, neither of them had the upper hand. Then, Xiao Chen and Mo Juedai moved at the same time. The two of them rushed towards each other. Then, the two of them fought fiercely. Their speed was so fast that it was almost impossible to see their figures clearly. Xiao Chen had the absolute Yin movement technique, and he had already cultivated it to perfection. Naturally, his speed had increased by a lot compared to before. As for Mo Juedai, he also had the ability of the Tian clan. His speed wasn't much weaker than Xiao Chen's. This was no longer an ordinary battle between the chosens of the saint ranking. The battle between Xiao Chen and Mo Juedai was clearly a life and death battle. Especially from Mo Juedai's appearance, it was as if he wouldn't stop until he killed Xiao Chen. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 14:21. Mo Juedai was clearly engulfed in killing intent. He was engaged in a fierce battle with Xiao Chen. He didn't care about anything else and only wanted to kill Xiao Chen. The two of them didn't hold back in the slightest. They fought all the way from Misty City to the sky. Two terrifying auras collided in the sky. The sharp sword intent enveloped the entire Misty City. Such a huge commotion naturally attracted the Mo family's attention. At this moment, the Mo family's ancestor and a group of Mo family experts arrived before Mo Liubai's corpse. But when they saw Mo Liubai's corpse, the Mo family experts were stunned. A middle-aged man among them directly arrived before Mo Liubai's corpse and immediately shed tears. This middle-aged man was Mo Liubai's father and the current patriarch of the Mo family. He was at the Sage Realm Mastery Realm and could be considered the second strongest expert under the Mo family's ancestor. He didn't expect Mo Liubai to be killed just like that. The Mo family's ancestor's face turned gloomy when he saw such an outcome. But besides the gloominess, there was also a trace of complexity. In fact, the Mo family's ancestor knew that Mo Liubai had brought Mo Juedai to cause trouble for Xiao Chen. He didn't agree with Mo Liubai's actions, but he didn't stop her. Because in the Mo family's ancestor's opinion, there shouldn't be any problems with Mo Juedai following her. Since Mo Liubai's resentment couldn't be dispelled, it was good to let her vent her anger. Unfortunately, the Mo family's ancestor's idea wasn't wrong, but he chose the wrong target. Xiao Chen wasn't the kind of person who would let others vent their anger. When faced with Mo Liubai's entanglement again, Xiao Chen didn't hesitate to kill Mo Liubai. He didn't give her the slightest chance. It was unknown whether the Mo family's ancestor was regretting it. If he could stop Mo Juedai and Mo Liubai today, things wouldn't have turned out this way. Xiao Chen and the Mo family wouldn't have ended up in such a situation. The matter was originally over, but because of Mo Liubai's unruly behavior and the Mo family's disregard, things had gotten out of hand. Looking at the fierce battle between Xiao Chen and Mo Juedai in the sky, the Mo family's patriarch was furious. He immediately planned to attack, but this time it was the Mo family's ancestor. "What do you want to do?" "I'm going to kill that little thief, Xiao Chen." "Nonsense. Do you think you can kill Xiao Chen with your strength? If you make a move now, other than causing trouble for Juedai, you won't be of any use at all. Stay aside from me." It was true that the Mo clan's patriarch was at the Sage Realm Great Perfection Realm. However, such a cultivation was completely useless in front of holy sons like Xiao Chen and Mo Juedai. Now that Xiao Chen and Mo Juedai were truly enraged, if the Mo family head were to act rashly, Not only would he not be able to help Emojuadai, he would even become a burden to Emojuadai. Sometimes it was not possible to win with more people. If they were not strong enough, they would only be a burden. Hearing his ancestors' words, the patriarch of the Emo family's face became extremely gloomy. Flames of fury burned in his eyes, but in the end, he suppressed the fury in his heart and stood to the side without saying anything. Indeed, it was as the Emo family's ancestor had said. Even if the patriarch of the Emo family took action now, he would only be a burden. It was better not to go. The experts of the Emo family and the warriors of the Floating Mist City were all watching the battle in the sky. Under everyone's gazes, the battle in the sky had reached its climax. Whether it was Shao Chun or Emojuadai, both of them had taken out their special skills. The mark on Emojuadai's forehead flickered with a dense red light. This was a secret technique of the Tian clan. Through the mark, he could increase his strength for a short period of time. On the other side, Shao Chun had also activated his tempered battle body to fight fiercely. His entire body flickered with golden light. After fighting for such a long time, the two of them were naturally injured. However, relying on the tempered battle body, Shao Chen's injuries could be healed in the shortest amount of time. Facing Shao Chen's terrifying recovery ability, Emojuadai also felt that it was troublesome. It was as if he could not be killed. Any injury, Shao Chun could heal in an instant. On the other hand, he, Emojuadai, did not have Shao Chen's terrifying recovery ability. If it was any other time, the two of them would have stopped fighting long ago. However, at this moment, whether it was Shao Chun or Emojuadai, neither of them had any intention of stopping. Emojuadai wanted to kill Shao Chun, and for this, he was willing to pay any price. Shao Chun was clearly enraged, and since Emojuadai wanted to kill him, Shao Chun would naturally not show mercy. To be honest, it was not as if Shao Chun had never killed a holy son of the saint rankings before. Back then, didn't Baichuran die at Shao Chun's hands? As the two swords collided, the terrifying spiritual energy even tore a hole in the space. The void storm was already wreaking havoc in the sky above the misty city. At this point, the battle had already reached a situation where one side would not rest until one side was dead. In the midst of the fierce battle, Emojuadai fiercely thrusted out his sword, which flickered with a dense blood-red light. When this sword pierced out, the horizon was dyed red by the red light. However, seeing this, Shao Chen's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. He did not even dodge and directly rushed towards Emojuadai. Seeing that Shao Chun had actually collided with the sword, the killing intent in Emojuadai's eyes became even more intense as he shouted, "Shao Chun, die!" As he spoke, Emojuadai's sword directly pierced Shao Chun's chest. Seeing this, the experts of the Emo family below were stunned, and then secretly rejoiced. Even if this sword could not kill Shao Chun, it would definitely be able to severely injure Shao Chun. The two of them were similar in strength, and once Shao Chun was seriously injured, it was equivalent to not being far from death. However, before the experts of the Emo family could rejoice for too long, Shao Chun had already pointed his finger at Emojuadai's forehead. Seeing Shao Chun's action, the ancestor of the Emo family was the first to react. The faint smile on his face instantly disappeared, and his figure immediately moved. At the same time, he shouted angrily, "Shao Chun, you dare!" The sudden agitation of the ancestor of the Emo family confused many of the experts of the Emo family. It was clearly Emojuadai who had the upper hand, so why was the ancestor so agitated? However, just as everyone was puzzled, a green sword light flashed on Shao Chun's finger. He had instantly executed the Mo Yi finger sword. At such a close distance, even Shao Chun's finger was directly imprinted on Emojuadai's forehead. Therefore, without giving Emojuadai any time to react, the green sword light instantly pierced through Emojuadai's forehead. Seeing the green sword light shoot out and instantly pierce through Emojuadai's forehead, the experts of the Mo family finally reacted. Why was the ancestor so agitated just now? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 1422. The cyan sword light directly pierced through Mo Juedai's forehead. Seeing this, everyone from the Mo family was completely stunned. If Mo Liubai's death only made the Mo family furious, then Mo Juedai's death was enough to shake the Mo family. One had to know that Mo Juedai's position in the Mo family was even higher than the Mo family's ancestor. His death was definitely a huge blow to the Mo family. No one in the entire Mo family could replace Mo Juedai. It could even be said that the Mo family was able to dominate Misty City and become the #1 family in Misty City because of Mo Juedai. At this moment, everyone from the Mo family stood on the spot as if they were dumbfounded. They coldly looked at the cyan sword light in the sky. How was this possible? They thought in their hearts. All the experts from the Mo family were dumbfounded. At this moment, the Mo family's ancestor, who had already made his move, appeared in front of Xiao Chen with a face full of anger. He fiercely slammed his palm towards Xiao Chen. Previously, the Mo family's ancestor had already noticed that something was wrong. However, he was still a step too late and couldn't stop Xiao Chen. Facing the Mo family's ancestor's attack, Xiao Chen didn't have any intention of fighting head-on. He directly pushed Mo Juedai's body towards the Mo family's ancestor. Seeing that Xiao Chen actually used Mo Juedai as a shield, the Mo family's ancestor could only forcefully withdraw his hand and immediately catch Mo Juedai. When the Mo family's ancestor caught Mo Juedai, Xiao Chen had already retreated. He casually threw a pill into his mouth and used all his strength to recover the spiritual energy he had consumed. At the same time, the place where Mo Juedai had stabbed his chest was also quickly healed under the recovery of the tempered battle body. Xiao Chen's previous move was completely a method of exchanging injury for life. The reason he dared to do so was naturally because of the improvement of his tempered battle body. After refining the barbarian god fruit, the tempered battle body had already reached the limit of the third heavenly realm. It was precisely because of his powerful physical body that Xiao Chen dared to use such a desperate method. Otherwise, even if he had killed Mo Juedai, Xiao Chen definitely wouldn't have gained any benefit. His breathing was a little rapid, but no matter what, Xiao Chen had won this battle. On the other side, the old ancestor of the Mo clan hugged Mo Juedai's body. There was a finger-sized bloody hole on Mo Juedai's forehead. As his aura grew weaker and weaker, Mo Juedai's eyes were filled with unwillingness. He never thought that he would die in the hands of Xiao Chen. Not being able to hold on for long, Mo Juedai finally died. Xiao Chen's strike could absolutely be considered a fatal strike. No matter how strong Mo Juedai was, it was impossible for him to hold on. Seeing that Mo Juedai's breath had been cut off, the eyes of the Mo clan's patriarch turned red. This was the hope of their Mo clan, and he had fallen just like that? It was originally a very small matter, and it was all because of Mo Liubai's unruly character. Who would have imagined that the matter would develop to such an extent? Not only had Mo Liubai been killed, even Mo Juedai had perished here. This caused the ancestor of the Mo clan to fall into a state of confusion. Everything could have been avoided, but the Mo clan had chosen to indulge Mo Liubai, resulting in such an outcome. Who knew if the ancestor of the Mo clan had a trace of regret in his heart? However, it was already useless to say all this now. Regardless of whether the ancestor of the Mo clan regretted it or not, Mo Juedai was already dead. In the sky, the light screen of the Saint rankings appeared once more. The 45th name that originally belonged to Mo Juedai had directly disappeared, while Xiao Chen had jumped to the 45th place. Mo Juedai's death directly wiped his name from the Saint rankings. At the same time, Mo Juedai became the second saint on the saint rankings that had fallen in the hands of Shaochen. The light screen enveloped the sky, but at this moment, the ancestor of the Mo clan was extremely repulsed by the light screen of the saint rankings because Shaochen had stepped on Mo Juedai's corpse to reach the 45th place on the saint rankings. After a moment of confusion, the ancestor of the Mo clan burned with rage. He raised his head and looked at Shaochen with bloodshot eyes. At the same time, the terrifying aura of the quasi-saint stage soared into the sky. Shaochen, my Mo clan will not rest until you die. Shaochen sneered when he heard the ancestor's furious shout that was filled with killing intent. Since the moment he killed Mo Lubai, Shaochen had already become an irreconcilable enemy of the Mo clan, so what was the point of saying all this now? Moreover, a power like the Mo clan might seem very strong to others, but it was nothing to Shaochen. Even though Shaochen wasn't a match for the ancestor of the Mo clan right now, it was impossible for the ancestor of the Mo clan to kill Shaochen with his cultivation at the beginning of the quasi-saint stage. There wasn't the slightest trace of fear on his face. When he saw this, the ancestor of the Mo clan shouted in a deep voice, "Attack! Kill this kid!" Following the ancestor of the Mo clan's furious shout, the experts of the Mo clan below also attacked. Several saints led by the head of the Mo clan charged towards Shaochen. Facing the siege of the experts of the Mo clan, Shaochen's gaze immediately locked onto Third Master Mo. Third Master Mo's cultivation was only at the beginning of the saint stage, and his strength was far inferior to Mo Juedai's. Moreover, he had supported Mo Lubai back then. If the ancestor of the Mo clan hadn't appeared, Third Master Mo would have probably been killed by Shaochen. Since it was already an irreconcilable situation, Shaochen naturally didn't have to hold back. He moved his feet and instantly executed the absolute Yin movement technique, charging directly towards the experts of the Mo clan. Ignoring the head of the Mo clan who was charging at the front, Shaochen's figure flashed and directly passed by the head of the Mo clan. Then, relying on his superb movement technique, he instantly appeared in front of Third Master Mo. Third Master Mo's expression changed when he saw Shaochen directly appear in front of him. He still hadn't forgotten the scene from a few days ago. At that time, he couldn't even withstand a single strike from Shaochen. "I originally wanted to let you go last time, but since you're courting death, you can't blame anyone for that," said Shaochen coldly. With that, he directly slashed out with his sword. The Scorching Sun sword was instantly executed. In the face of Shaochen's sword, Third Master Mo almost instinctively defended himself. However, with his strength, it was naturally impossible for him to block Shaochen's sword. Unsurprisingly, Third Master Mo's defense was easily destroyed by the Scorching Sun sword technique. The sword didn't stop at all as it slashed across Third Master Mo's neck. One strike. With just one strike, Shaochen had killed a saint. The surrounding experts of the Mo clan were stunned when they saw Third Master Mo's head fly into the air. Not far away, the head of the Mo clan was exposed to the extreme at this moment. His eyes were bloodshot as he roared at Shaochen. "Third brother! Shaochen, you're courting death!" Third Master Mo was the younger brother of the head of the Mo clan. Now, after his children had died at the hands of Shaochen, Third Master Mo had also died at the hands of Shaochen. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 1423. Third Lord Mo was a saint. Although he was only at the beginning of the saint realm, he was still a saint. Even so, Third Lord Mo was killed by Shaochen with a single strike of his sword. The Mo clan master went completely mad. His son, daughter, and younger brother had all died at the hands of Shaochen. How could he not be angry? He immediately attacked Shaochen. Terrifying murderous intent spread all over his body. However, Xiao Qin was completely unfazed by the anger of the head of the Mo clan. Although the Mo clan master's cultivation was much higher than Third Master Mo's and had reached the Saint Realm Mastery Realm, it was still not enough for Xiao Qin. Ever since he had broken through to the half-body mirror, ordinary saints, even saints who had reached the Saint Realm perfection, were no longer a threat to Xiao Qin. Therefore, since the Mo clan master wanted to die, Xiao Qin would naturally fulfill his wish. He planned to kill the Mo clan master as well. In any case, things had come to this point. Xiao Qin and the Mo clan were in a situation where they would not rest until one of them was dead. Killing one or two of them was no different. However, just as Xiao Qin was about to make his move, the Mo clan master also made his move. After handing over Mo Juedai's corpse to a Dao Emperor Realm Mo clan member, the Mo clan's ancestor attacked Xiao Qin furiously. He could ignore a saint like the Mo clan master, but Xiao Qin still could not let his guard down when facing a quasi-saint great venerate like the Mo clan master. After all, a quasi-saint great venerate was far from a saint. Xiao Qin frowned slightly. He did not fight the Mo clan master head-on. After all, although his strength had improved a lot during this period of time, Xiao Qin still did not have the strength to fight a quasi-saint great venerate. He executed the absolute Yin movement technique and dodged the ancestor's attack with a flash. Perhaps it was because he had attacked in rage, but the ancestor didn't consider anything else at all. So, Xiao Qin avoided the attack. However, some of the Mo clansmen who were only at the Dao Emperor realm in the surroundings weren't so lucky. They were directly killed by the ancestor's attack. Dying at the hands of their own great ancestor was rather comical. Seeing this, the great ancestor of the Mo family became even angrier. He did not care about his own master anymore. Without stopping, the great ancestor of the Mo family rushed towards Xiao Qin again. A berserk quasi-saint great venerate was indeed exceptionally terrifying. Unfortunately, the Mo family patriarch's opponent was Xiao Qin. In terms of life-saving means, there was probably no one in the entire central world who was stronger than the chosens of the saint ranking. After all, every single chosen of the saint ranking was the hope of a large sect. Therefore, every single chosen of the saint ranking could be said to be armed to the teeth. They possessed all sorts of life-saving trump cards. The spatial ring on Xiao Qin's hand flashed when he saw the Mo family patriarch charge towards him. Then, over a dozen saint-tier talismans shot out. The Dragon Emperor had extorted these talismans from the Xianyuan clan. There were a total of 1,000 talismans. Because he knew that Xiao Qin was going out to gain experience by himself, the Dragon Emperor had simply given Xiao Qin 700 of these talismans so that Xiao Qin could use them to protect himself. 700 saint-tier talismans, and all of them were at the peak of the saint tier. There were offensive talismans, defensive talismans, and support talismans. The talismans that Xiao Qin had thrown out were all offensive talismans. They were called the Starfall talismans, and they were extremely powerful. Over a dozen Starfall talismans instantly exploded at the same time. Then, the area where the Mo family patriarch stood was immediately enveloped in raging flames. This power was no weaker than the full-strength attack of a perfect saint stage expert. However, that was not the end of it. Xiao Qin did not stop after the dozen or so Heaven-Fire Meteor Fall talismans exploded. He threw out another 30 Heaven-Fire Meteor Fall talismans, which exploded once again. The power of the flames instantly doubled. Even a quasi-saint supreme sovereign like the Mo family patriarch didn't dare to be careless in the face of an attack from a peak saint-tier talisman that was dozens of feet long. However, even though the Mo family patriarch had taken this seriously, he still underestimated Xiao Qin's methods. Xiao Qin had thrown out over 40 Starfall talismans in 2 tries. In just a few breaths' time, another stack of Starfall talismans appeared in Xiao Qin's hand. There were a total of 100 Starfall talismans. "Old bastard, I don't believe that I can't kill you," Xiao Qin said coldly as a murderous intent flashed in his eyes. Since they had already started a blood feud, there was naturally no need to hold back. One had to be ruthless when doing things. The wildfire couldn't burn away the fire, and it would grow again when the spring breeze blew. Xiao Qin wouldn't let a clan that had a deep grudge against him live and constantly think of ways to take revenge on him. Since he was going to kill, he had to do it cleanly. This was Xiao Qin's idea. In any case, Xiao Qin had 700 peak Saint Tier talismans on him. In addition, he had also accumulated some over the years. Therefore, Xiao Qin didn't feel any heartache about using these 100 Starfall talismans to kill the Mo family patriarch. In any case, these talismans were going to be used. If he didn't use them, they would be useless. Murderous intent gathered in Xiao Qin's eyes. Then, he swung his hand and the 100 Starfall talismans shot toward the Mo family patriarch. The dozens of Starfall talismans from before hadn't been dealt with yet, and now the 100 Starfall talismans were attacking him. Seeing this scene, the Mo family patriarch's eyebrows twitched involuntarily. These were peak Saint Tier talismans. Every single one of them could be said to be priceless. Although a clan like the Mo family was a quasi-saint clan, the number of Saint Tier talismans in the entire Mo family was only a mere 100 to 200. Moreover, this was the result of the Mo family's accumulation over several generations. Saint Tier talismans weren't cabbages that could be found on the street. The Mo family didn't have any talisman masters. Therefore, if one wanted to obtain a peak Saint Tier talisman, the price one had to pay was very high. But now, Xiao Qin had thrown out more than 100 Skyfire Starfall talismans. This was no longer a contest of strength. To put it bluntly, Xiao Qin was throwing money at the Great Elder of the Mo clan. He was trying to crush the Great Elder of the Mo clan with money. Shock flashed through the Mo family patriarch's eyes. More than 100 Starfall talismans were enough to pose a threat to the Mo family patriarch. Moreover, it was a fatal threat. It was only now that the Mo family patriarch personally understood why people said it was extremely difficult to kill any chosen on the saint ranking. It was because every chosen on the saint ranking had an endless number of life-saving trump cards. Xiao Qin was like that. So many Saint Tier talismans made the Mo family patriarch's scalp go numb. Of course, since Xiao Qin had so many life-saving trump cards, Mo Juedai, who had been killed by Xiao Qin, naturally also had some. However, he didn't even have the chance to use these life-saving trump cards. It could only be said that Mo Juedai was too careless. He didn't even think that Xiao Qin had the strength to kill him. Begging for a monthly vote, begging for a recommendation. Chapter 1424. It wasn't wrong to say that Mo Juedai's death was his own doing. Although Xiao Qin's strength was one of the reasons, it was also because of Mo Juedai's overconfidence and carelessness. If Mo Juedai had been more cautious, he definitely wouldn't have died. The reason was very simple. Mo Juedai definitely had various life-saving methods given to him by the Heavenly Palace. Unfortunately, he no longer had the chance to use them. On the other hand, Xiao Qin and Mo Juedai were completely different. Xiao Qin was confident, but he definitely wasn't arrogant. No matter who the enemy was, he wouldn't relax. More than 100 Heaven Fire Meteor Fall talismans exploded, and the Mo family's ancestor was surrounded by raging flames. These flames were enough to burn a saint, and even the Mo family's ancestor found it extremely difficult to block more than 100 Heaven Fire Meteor Fall talismans. There were burn marks on his clothes and skin. His spiritual energy was simply unable to resist the burning of these raging flames. As a quasi-saint great sovereign and the Mo family's ancestor, it had been many years since the Mo family's ancestor was forced to such a state. Who would have thought that after living for so many years, the Mo family's ancestor would be forced to such a state by a junior in the end? The spiritual energy in his body soared into the sky, frantically resisting the endless raging flames around him. The sky seemed to have turned into a sea of fire, and the experts of the Mo family didn't dare to approach at all. All of them stood far away, nervously looking at the Mo family's ancestor in the sea of fire. Patriarch, will the ancestor be all right? Facing such a terrifying sea of fire, a saint of the Mo family asked the Mo family's patriarch with a solemn expression. In the current situation, the Mo family's ancestor was definitely in a bad situation. However, the Mo family's patriarch's face darkened when he heard this. Bullshit, how could the ancestor be all right? Do you think you can kill the ancestor with these saint-level talismans? You're simply dreaming. The Mo family's patriarch berated in a deep voice. To be honest, he wasn't confident at this time, but he couldn't show it. Mo Juadai was already dead. If something were to happen to the Mo family's ancestor at this time, it would be a disaster for the Mo family. Thinking about it, if even the ancestor of the Mo clan was in Xiao Chen's hands, who else in the Mo clan would be a match for Xiao Chen? At that time, the entire Mo clan would probably be destroyed by Xiao Chen. He could only force himself to believe that it was impossible for a mere saint-level talisman to kill his ancestor. However, the Mo family head wasn't lying. Although these sacred-grade talismans were powerful, it was indeed unrealistic to rely on them to kill a quasi-saint great sovereign like the Mo family ancestor. After all, at the level of a quasi-sage great venerable, the threat of a sage talisman still existed, but it was no longer so fatal. This was the case even if Xiao Chen used hundreds of sage talismans in a row. Of course, Xiao Chen was also very clear about this point. Therefore, from the beginning, Xiao Chen had no hope of using these sage talismans to kill the Mo family ancestor. Xiao Chen hadn't used his real trump card yet. As time went on, the flames of the Skyfire Starfall talismans were gradually dispersed by the Mo ancestor. Although the Mo ancestor appeared to be in a very wretched state right now, with his clothes and skin covered in burn marks, his presence was still extremely vigorous. He hadn't suffered any serious injuries because of these hundreds of sage talismans. This was the strength of a quasi-saint great sovereign. The flames were gradually dispersed by the Mo family ancestor. At this time, the Mo family ancestor finally had the energy to look at Xiao Chen. The killing intent in his eyes was even stronger than before as he shouted coldly. An external force is ultimately an external force. Little bastard, let this old man tell you today that only when you are strong yourself can you be truly strong. His words were filled with dense killing intent, but Xiao Chen didn't panic at all. On the contrary, the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. You're right, but you forgot one thing. Although an external force is an external force and can't represent oneself, it can still kill. With that, Xiao Chen's storage ring flashed and an ancient stone tablet appeared in his hand. The Mo family patriarch was taken aback when he saw the stone tablet. Then, he instinctively called out. Spirit tablet. A spirit tablet, as the name implied, was a treasure that could store spirit energy. Once someone injected spirit energy into it, the spirit tablet would have the ability to attack. Of course, the ability of this attack was determined by the cultivation of the person who injected spirit energy into it. Moreover, this token was a one-time use treasure. Each spirit tablet could only be used once. After using it, it would shatter. To put it simply, if a quasi-saint great sovereign injected spirit energy into a token, the token would be able to unleash a quasi-saint great sovereign level attack. If the great sage injected spirit energy into the token would be able to unleash a quasi-saint level attack. Xiao Chen had 3 of these spirit tablets with him. It could be said that they were his true trump cards. Xiao Chen looked at the great ancestor of the Mo clan with murderous intent in his eyes as he held the tablet in his hand. Do you know who gave me this token? Hearing this, the Mo family ancestor immediately had a bad premonition. Without waiting for the Mo family ancestor to reply, or perhaps Shao Chen didn't plan on letting him reply, he continued, "This spirit tablet was given to me by the heavenly Yin Solar Sex Patriarch Yinyangzi. You should understand what I mean, right? This token was indeed given to Shao Chen by Yinyangzi. It was for Shao Chen to use in times of danger." As soon as he finished speaking, Shao Chen directly activated the token. Immediately, a terrifying aura that made everyone tremble in fear instantly erupted. Then, a beam of light intertwined with black and white light shot out from the spirit tablet. This attack was clearly Yinyangzi's method. Seeing this beam of black and white light shooting towards him, the Mo family ancestor's expression changed drastically. Even when Shao Chen had used over 100 heavenly flame starfall talismans, the Mo family ancestor's expression had only turned slightly ugly. However, in the face of this intertwined beam of black and white light, a trace of fear appeared on the Mo family ancestor's face. The Great Sage. This was definitely the Great Sage's basic attack. It was impossible for the Mo family ancestor to block such an attack. He immediately wanted to retreat, but at this moment Shao Chen's voice rang out, "Don't you think it's a little too late to run now?" As he spoke, the attack viciously slammed into the Mo family ancestor. Immediately, a blinding light erupted and enveloped the entire Mist City. At the same time, the people below were so blinded that they couldn't open their eyes. The Mo family ancestor's figure was completely swallowed by the light. His aura was completely concealed as well. It was impossible to tell whether he was dead or alive. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 1425. This represented Yinyangzi's all-out attack. How could the Mo family's patriarch possibly block it? Dazzling light enveloped the entire ethereal city. Many cultivators with low cultivation bases and bad luck were also affected by the terrifying aftershocks and were instantly killed. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. The Great Sage's attack was so terrifying. As the light slowly dissipated, everyone saw that a huge black hole had appeared where the Mo family's patriarch had been. Clearly, it was formed by the powerful force that had shattered space just now. Spatial storms constantly spread out from the black hole, but the Mo family's patriarch's figure had disappeared. Not even a trace of his aura was left behind. He had probably been sucked into the black hole. Faced with this outcome, the many experts of the Mo family were all stunned. Even their patriarch had been killed. At this moment, the Mo family no longer had any anger in their hearts. Instead, they were filled with endless fear and regret. They regretted provoking Shao Chen. They regretted not disciplining Mo Liu Bai more strictly. If it weren't for Mo Liu Bai's unruly and willfulness, their Mo family wouldn't have ended up like this. All along, the Mo family had helped Mo Liu Bai deal with the troubles he caused. Sometimes, when the Mo family couldn't handle it, Mo Juedai would step forward to clean up the mess. But this time, Mo Liu Bai finally kicked an iron plate. Not only was he killed, but he also implicated Mo Juedai. In the end, even the Mo family's patriarch was killed by Shao Chen's trump card. Mo Juedai and the Mo family's patriarch, the two guardians of the Mo family, were killed by Shao Chen one after another. Many people of the Mo family could already see their fate. At that moment, the clan leader of the Mo clan looked at Shao Chen with deep fear in his eyes. At the same time, there was also deep regret in his eyes. The Mo family was probably going to be destroyed. Just as the Mo family's patriarch looked at Shao Chen also happened to look at the Mo family's patriarch and the others. Meeting Shao Chen's gaze, the head of the Mo family felt goosebumps all over his body. Then, without any hesitation, he shouted, "Run, run!" Now that the patriarch was dead, there was no one in the Mo clan who could stop Shao Chen. They could only run. However, as soon as the patriarch of the Mo clan finished speaking, Shao Chen appeared in front of him with a faint smile on his face. Don't you think it's over for you to run now? Without giving the patriarch of the Mo family a chance to reply, Xiao Chen directly slashed out. In response, the patriarch of the Mo family made a prompt decision to block with his sword. The Mo family head was indeed much stronger than Third Master Mo. At the very least, Xiao Chen would not be able to kill him with one strike. But so what? If Xiao Chen wanted to kill him, it wouldn't be difficult. As the sword fell, Xiao Chen didn't stop. He slashed out again. At the same time, without giving the patriarch of the Mo family any time to react, Xiao Chen pointed his finger and instantly executed the Moi sword finger. The blazing sword technique and the Moi sword finger attacked the patriarch of the Mo family at the same time. Although the patriarch of the Mo family successfully blocked the first strike, the Moi sword finger that followed instantly penetrated his shoulder. Fortunately, the patriarch of the Mo family had forcefully avoided the attack at the last moment. Otherwise, the finger would not have penetrated his shoulder, but his heart. Although the patriarch of the Mo family had successfully avoided the attack, he was still injured. There was no time for the patriarch of the Mo family to recover. Xiao Chen was already on top of him. The patriarch of the Mo family, who was only at the Sage Great Mastery realm, was naturally no match for Xiao Chen. He also didn't think that he could defeat Xiao Chen. At the moment, the patriarch of the Mo family was only thinking about one thing. He wanted to hold off Xiao Chen for a while longer. The longer he could hold on, the greater the chances of the other members of the Mo family escaping alive. The whole thing had been caused by his daughter, Mo Lu Bai. He had left behind this unruly and willful daughter. It was also this daughter who had personally sent the Mo family to a dead end. As a father and the patriarch of the Mo family, the patriarch of the Mo family couldn't shirk his responsibility. Therefore, he could only use his own actions to make up for some of his mistake. Unfortunately, although the patriarch of the Mo family was determined to die, he still couldn't change anything in the face of the disparity in strength. It was too late to atone for his sins now. There were many things in this world, but there was no medicine for regret. If the patriarch of the Mo family had disciplined Mo Lu Bai earlier, the Mo family definitely wouldn't have ended up in such a state. Attacking with all his strength, Xiao Chen naturally wouldn't give the patriarch of the Mo family a chance to delay. With a few strikes, Xiao Chen severed the patriarch of the Mo family's right arm. Blood splattered as the patriarch of the Mo family's right arm was directly severed. His face was pale, but then Xiao Chen slashed out again. The patriarch of the Mo family's head flew into the air. He was dead. After killing a saint of the Mo family, Xiao Chen moved and charged toward the other members of the Mo family. Since he had already chosen to attack, Xiao Chen wouldn't give the Mo family any more chances. His target was the last saint of the Mo family. In the entire Mo family, there were 3 other saints besides the patriarch of the Mo family, who was a quasi-saint great venerate. Xiao Chen had already killed 2 of them. The last one was the second patriarch of the Mo family. He wasn't as strong as the patriarch of the Mo family, but he was slightly stronger than the third master of the Mo family. He was at the initial saint stage. However, it was obviously impossible for him to stop Xiao Chen with this little bit of strength. With a flash, he instantly blocked in front of the second patriarch of the Mo family. When he saw this, the second patriarch of the Mo family knew that he couldn't escape, so he went all out and slashed out with his saber. He was going to die anyway. Facing the second patriarch of the Mo family's saber, Xiao Chen flicked his sword and immediately blasted the second patriarch of the Mo family's saber away. Then, he pointed his finger and the Mo Xie sword finger instantly pierced through the second patriarch of the Mo family's forehead. After killing the second patriarch of the Mo family in 2 moves, all the experts above the saint stage in the Mo family were killed by Xiao Chen. As a result, the remaining half-saints and Dao emperors weren't a match for Xiao Chen at all. he chased after the members of the Mo family in a frenzy. All the members of the Mo family who were encountered by Xiao Qin were killed without exception. The battle only ended when Xiao Qin killed his way into the Mo family's mansion and killed the last member of the Mo family. The Mo family was annihilated. In a single day, the entire Mo family was completely annihilated. The entire Misty City was dyed red with blood. The surrounding people couldn't believe that the Mo family, which was the #1 family in Misty City yesterday, had actually been annihilated today. After slaughtering the Mo family, Xiao Qin found Mo Jueidai's corpse. As a saint on the saint rankings, Mo Jueidai naturally had a lot of good things on him. He couldn't let them go to waste. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 1426. He directly erased the soul mark on Mo Jueidai's storage ring and probed it with his divine sense. Just as Xiao Qin thought, Mo Jueidai really had a lot of good things on him. Needless to say, pills and talismans, as a saint on the saint ranking, Mo Jueidai definitely didn't lack these. In addition, what Xiao Qin valued the most were the 2 tokens. They were the same as Xiao Qin's token. Moreover, according to his observation, Xiao Qin was sure that these 2 tokens were also infused with spiritual power by the great sage. Their power was the same as Xiao Qin's token. It should be a life-saving trump card that the great sage in the heavenly palace had specially given to Mo Jueidai. Unfortunately, Mo Jueidai didn't even have the chance to use it and was directly killed by Xiao Qin. It wasn't wrong to be a little confident, but if it turned into arrogance, then it was courting death. If there was someone to blame, then Mo Jueidai could only blame himself for being too arrogant and underestimating the enemy. Xiao Qin put all the treasures on Mo Jueidai's body into his bag. As for the storage rings of the other Mo clan members, he didn't care at all. Thinking about it, there wouldn't be anything good in them, so he didn't bother to touch them. The Mo clan was destroyed, and Xiao Qin left under the horrified gazes of many cultivators in Misty City. Xiao Qin left Ethereal City, but the heavenly palace was already in a mess. In the main hall, dozens of quasi-saints and half-step great sage experts gathered together. Each of them had an extremely ugly look on their faces. They naturally saw the saint ranking light screen that appeared in the sky just now, and Mo Jueidai's name was directly erased from the saint ranking. This proved that Mo Jueidai was definitely dead. If Mo Jueidai was only defeated by Xiao Qin, then his name definitely wouldn't be directly erased. At most, he would just drop 1 rank. But now, Mo Jueidai's name was no longer on the saint ranking. In this way, there was only one explanation: Mo Jueidai was dead. Did Xiao Qin kill Mo Jueidai? A half-step great sage asked indifferently. Hearing this, another half-step great sage expert nodded slightly and said, "It should be. After all, the change on the saint ranking means that Mo Jueidai should really be dead. The saint ranking definitely wouldn't be wrong." Hearing this, the half-step great sage who spoke first exhorted for a moment and said, "Send someone to Misty City to see what exactly happened. In addition, send someone to pay attention to Xiao Qin's whereabouts." Based on the information on the saint rankings, they could only determine that Mo Jueidai was dead. However, they could not be sure of the specifics. Therefore, it was necessary to send someone to Misty City. On the same day, 2 quasi-saint great sovereigns from the heavenly palace rushed to Misty City. The matter of Xiao Qin killing Mo Jueidai and slaughtering the Mo family alarmed the heavenly palace. Of course, the heavenly palace naturally didn't care whether the Mo family was destroyed or not. They only cared about Mo Jueidai. After all, Mo Jueidai was a chosen on the saint ranking, and his ranking wasn't low. When the higher-ups of the heavenly palace began to take action, Tian Yu also went to find Tian Mushi. She had already followed Tian Mushi to the heavenly palace. Moreover, Her talent was valued by the higher-ups of the Heavenly Palace. She was completely treated like a chosen on the saint ranking. Tian Yu didn't disappoint. She had now become a chosen on the saint ranking. Although her ranking wasn't high, her potential was very great. Tian Yue had taken the initiative to look for Tian Mushi because of Xiao Chen. Judging from the changes on the light screen of the saint ranking, it was obvious that Emo Juedai had died at Xiao Chen's hands. Furthermore, Tian Yue was also aware of the actions of the upper echelons of the Heavenly Palace. Tian Yu was afraid that the Heavenly Palace would harm Xiao Chen, so she immediately went to find Tian Mushi. Tian Yu didn't know many people in the Heavenly Palace, and she wasn't interested in dealing with them. Therefore, she could only come to find Tian Mushi. Tian Mushi was originally cultivating in her cave dwelling. When she saw Tian Yu, she slowly opened her eyes and smiled softly. "What's the matter? You actually came to find me. Senior sister, you know about Emo Juedai, right?" Tian Yu didn't hide anything and immediately asked. "Emo Juedai's matter?" Tian Mushi had already guessed Tian Yu's intention. She naturally knew about this matter. After all, the death of a chosen on the saint ranking was no small matter. A smile flashed across Tian Mushi's eyes as she faintly smiled. "What? Are you here to plead on behalf of your husband?" In an instant, he guessed Tian Yu's intentions. Hearing this, Tian Yu nodded and admitted to it. Now that Xiao Chen was in the Tian clan, if the Heavenly Palace wanted to deal with Xiao Chen, it would indeed be very troublesome. However, compared to Tian Yu's shock, Tian Mushi smiled faintly. "You little girl, do you think the Heavenly Palace will deal with Xiao Chen? Won't they?" Tian Yu asked doubtfully. Would the Heavenly Palace sit by and watch Xiao Chen kill Emo Juedai? That shouldn't be possible. After all, Emo Juedai was a chosen on the saint ranking. As Tian Yu had just stepped onto the hallowed ranking, she did not know much about the hallowed ranking. Seeing this, Tian Mushi laughed softly and explained. If a chosen on the saint ranking dies at the hands of another chosen on the saint ranking, then in half of the cases, the various major forces won't care. Firstly, the chosen on the saint ranking are very strong. They also have the protection of the will of the heavenly way. If the various major forces send their older generation experts, the weaker ones won't be able to kill them. Even if the stronger ones succeed in the end, they will be punished by the will of the heavenly way. Therefore, it's very difficult to deal with. Moreover, if the matter of a chosen on the saint ranking leads to the intervention of the major forces, then the matter will very likely blow up. After all, every chosen on the saint ranking has a powerful background. Take this matter for example. Xiao Chen killed Emo Juedai. That's a matter between the two of them. If the Heavenly Palace directly makes a move on Xiao Chen, it's very likely that it will arouse the anger of the Heavenly Yin sect and Taiyang sect. At that time, the slightest carelessness could lead to a war between the two sections. Therefore, if you're worried that the Heavenly Palace will send people to directly make a move on Xiao Chen, then you don't have to worry. As long as Xiao Chen killed Emo Juedai with his own strength and without the help of others, the Heavenly Palace won't care. Even if he dies, it can only be because Emo Juedai was too weak. The Heavenly Palace would only send people to Misty City to investigate and wouldn't make a move on Xiao Chen. Of course, the premise was that Emo Juedai had indeed died at the hands of Xiao Chen without the help of others. Otherwise, the Heavenly Palace would definitely intervene. Hearing Tian Mushi's words, Tian Yu nodded slightly. Seeing this, Tian Yu continued with a smile. However, although the Heavenly Palace won't make a move on Xiao Chen, the other chosen on the saint ranking will probably still seek revenge on Xiao Chen. Of course, this has nothing to do with the Heavenly Palace. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendation. Chapter 1427. Under normal circumstances, the major forces of the central world wouldn't interfere in the matters between the chosen on the holy rankings. This was an unwritten rule. Otherwise, the central world would be constantly embroiled in the flames of war if the forces behind the chosen on the holy rankings were to intervene every time the chosen killed each other on the holy rankings were commonplace. Of course, no one else was allowed to interfere. Otherwise, it would be a violation of the rules. This time, Xiao Chen's killing of Mo Juedai was witnessed by countless people in Misty City. As long as the Heavenly Palace's people went to Misty City to investigate, they would know that Xiao Chen had indeed killed Mo Juedai with his own strength. No one else had interfered. As such, according to the rules, the Heavenly Palace wouldn't interfere in this matter. Of course, whether the other chosen under the Heavenly Palace on the saint ranking would hate Xiao Chen or seek revenge on Xiao Chen was none of the Heavenly Palace's business. After all, Xiao Chen had killed Mo Juedai. According to the rules, the Heavenly Palace wouldn't interfere with Xiao Chen. However, if the other chosen on the saint ranking killed Xiao Chen, the Heavenly Yin and Taiyang sect wouldn't interfere either. He gave a simple explanation to Tianyu. Hearing this, Tianyu could not help but breathe a sigh of relief. Seeing this, Tianmushi laughed. "Little girl, don't be happy too early. Although the Heavenly Palace won't interfere, it's hard to say what Tianfun's group will do. If they go looking for Xiao Chen, then Xiao Chen will also be in danger." Tianfun was one of the top 10 chosen on the saint ranking. In the Heavenly Palace, his strength was second only to Tianmushi. Now that he had broken through to the saint stage, if Tianfun were to interfere, then Xiao Chen would also be in danger. However, after hearing Tianmushi's words, Tianyu said confidently, "Among those of the same generation, my husband isn't afraid of anyone." The same goes for Tianfun. Tianyu had absolute confidence in Xiao Chen. Ever since he had stepped into the realm of martial arts, Xiao Chen had never been afraid of anyone of the same generation. Although Xiao Chen was still not a match for Tianfun, Tianyu was confident that Tianfun would not be able to kill Xiao Chen. As long as the Heavenly Palace did not make a move, Tianyu was not afraid. She believed that Xiao Chen would definitely be able to handle it. "Thank you, senior sister." A smile appeared on Tianyu's face as she bowed and left with a peace of mind. Tianmushi shook her head with a wry smile as she watched Tianyu leave. She had been in such a hurry when she arrived, but she was so happy when she heard that the Heavenly Palace would not act against Xiao Chen. Tianmushi also smiled and said, "This little girl." To be honest, Tianmushi had a good impression of Tianyu. The little girl was very talented, and at the same time, she wasn't a bad person. At the very least, she wasn't petty. Following Tianyu's departure, Tianmushi once again began to cultivate. However, at this time, Tianmushi was also thinking in her heart, just what kind of situation would Xiao Chen cause in the Tian clan? This was somewhat interesting. Tianmushi clearly had no intention of avenging Mo Juedai, and Tianfun probably wouldn't either. After all, with Tianfun's personality, he would only think that Mo Juedai's death was due to his own weakness, and not Xiao Chen. Tianmushi and Tianfun would not find trouble with Xiao Chen. As for the other holy children on the saint rankings, even if they went, it wouldn't be of much use. After all, even Mo Juedai had died in Xiao Chen's hands. If the others went, the result would be the same. The only person they needed to pay attention to was Tian Hifeng. His relationship with Mo Juedai was pretty good, and he was also ranked 36th on the saint rankings, the last of the 36 heavenly stars. In terms of strength, he was much stronger than Mo Juedai. His cultivation had even broken through to the saint realm a few days ago, and he had successfully broken through to the saint realm, Tian Fa. As such, Tian Hifeng should be the most likely person to find trouble with Xiao Chen. However, none of this had anything to do with Tianmushi. She had no intention of finding trouble with Xiao Chen, but she would definitely not be kind enough to help Xiao Chen. Since he had killed Mo Juedai, he had to have the ability to deal with the following matters. Otherwise, who could he blame? Just like Emojuadai. 7 days passed in a row. Just as Tian Mushi had said, after going to Misty City to understand what had happened, the Heavenly Palace indeed had no intention of taking action against Shao Chen. However, many of the disciples below hated Shao Chen to the point of gnashing their teeth. However, these people were all bark and no bite. Although they were happily scolding Shao Chen now, they probably wouldn't dare to find trouble with Shao Chen. After all, no one was a fool. Shao Chen was a saint on the saint rankings, and he could even kill Emojuadai. Wouldn't they be sending themselves to their deaths if they went? However, just because ordinary disciples didn't dare to go didn't mean that no one dared to. On this day, Tian Hifeng left the Heavenly Palace alone, obviously to search for Shao Chen's whereabouts. Tian Mushi had guessed it. Tian Hifeng indeed wanted to avenge Emojuadai. With his strength, although Shao Chen had killed Emojuadai, it didn't mean anything. Moreover, Tian Hifeng had broken through to the Saint Realm a few days ago, and his cultivation was higher than Shao Chen's. Under the premise that there was a difference in cultivation, Shao Chen couldn't possibly be a match for Tian Hifeng. Tian Hifeng's departure didn't alarm too many people, and Shao Chen naturally didn't know about it. After 7 days, Shao Chen arrived at a small city called Wanshan City. Wanshan City wasn't famous in the Tian clan's territory, and could only be considered an ordinary small city. However, Shao Chen, which used to be extremely ordinary, was now extremely lively. It was said that a secret realm was about to appear here. Half a month ago, spatial fluctuations had appeared intermittently on Yuehua Mountain, which was less than 50 miles away from Wanshan City. At the same time, it was said that some people had seen the appearance of multicolored light. Such a strange scene naturally made many people think that this was a sign that something was going to happen in the secret realm. The appearance of the secret realm naturally attracted the attention of countless people. Therefore, cultivators from all over rushed to Wanshan City. Among them were the patriarchs of large clans, sect masters of various large sects, and so on. There were saint realm, quasi-saint realm, and great venerables everywhere. The originally quiet Wanshan City had also become unusually lively during this period. Shao Chen was also attracted by this rumor. Shao Chen didn't plan to challenge the saint rankings in the short term. After all, the battle with Emojuadai had let Shao Chen know that it was almost impossible for him to become a heavenly dipper saint with his current strength. This was because even Tian Hifeng, who was ranked last among the 36 heavenly dipper saints, had broken through to the saint realm. Therefore, if Shao Chen wanted to become a heavenly dipper saint, the most important thing now was to break through to the saint realm. There was definitely no chance of winning if there was a difference in cultivation. If he didn't break through to the saint realm, he couldn't think about becoming a heavenly dipper saint. Therefore, when he heard that a secret realm was about to appear in Wanshan town, Shao Chen rushed over immediately to try his luck. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 1428. Shao Chen had already stayed in Wanshan town for 5 days. Half a month had passed since he left Ethereal City. After a few days of observation, Shao Chen also discovered that the cultivators gathered in Wanshan town were basically people from some small forces. None of the disciples or elders of the Heavenly Palace showed up. However, this was normal. After all, Sky Palace was the only supreme sage sect in the Sky race. The entire Sky Palace occupied more than 80% of the cultivation resources in the Sky race's territory. There were many cultivation mystic realms in Sky Palace. They were not interested in guarding a mystic realm that they did not know what it was. Sky Palace was not interested. Those slightly larger sects also did not come. Only some people from some small forces around Wanshan town came. These small forces were not strong. For example, Shao Chun observed over the past few days. The strongest among them were only great venerables at the beginning of the quasi-sage realm. Moreover, there were only 3 of them. These 3 quasi-sage great venerables were the strongest cultivators gathered in Wanshan town at this time. They came from 3 different sections. With only 3 quasi-sage great venerables, Shao Chun had a lot of confidence in competing for this mystic realm. Of course, it also depended on what the mystic realm was. If it was just a useless mystic realm, then Shao Chun had no interest in competing for it. In the past 2 days, the 5-colored light of Yuehua Mountain appeared more and more frequently. It seemed that the mystic realm was indeed about to appear. Without continuing to stay in Wanshan town, Shao Chun went directly to Yuehua Mountain. Like Shao Chun, the other cultivators in Wanshan town also rushed to Yuehua Mountain at this time. Because of the havoc in Ethereal City just now, Shao Chun was wearing a black bamboo hat at this time, which covered his face. Therefore, no one could recognize Shao Chun's identity. Not wanting to cause more trouble, the most important thing now was to see what this mystic realm was like. If it was useful, Shao Chun did not recommend competing for it. However, if it was useless, Shao Chun would leave directly. Before that, he would avoid as many troubles as possible. All the way to Mount Yuehua, the small Mount Yuehua was already packed with people. Warriors from all the major forces, as well as many individual cultivators, had gathered on Mount Yuehua. Of course, the leaders were naturally the 3 quasi-saint venerables. Below them, there were more than 20 saints. There were nearly 10,000 people gathered here, and everyone's gaze was fixed on the peak of Mount Yuehua. Occasionally, there would be 5-colored rays of light shooting up into the sky, and the frequency was getting more and more frequent. It seemed that the secret realm would appear in the next few days. However, Shao Chun didn't join in the fun with those powerhouses. He casually found a spot halfway up the mountain and quietly waited for the secret realm to appear. Shao Chun's location was not eye-catching. After all, most people's gazes were focused on the few figures closest to the mountain peak. The stronger a person was, the higher they would stand. For example, the 3 quasi-saint supremes were standing side by side on the mountain peak. Behind them were the saints. The closer one was to the mountain peak, the easier it would be to obtain the secret realm after it appeared. However, Shao Chun was very clear that although these people seemed to be only a step away from the secret realm, it was obviously impossible to rely on this little advantage to obtain the secret realm when it appeared. It was still fine if it was a useless secret realm, but if it was a useful secret realm that appeared this time, everyone present would fight until their heads bled. Because of this, Shao Chun didn't fight for the positions around the mountain peak. Otherwise, with Shao Chun's identity and strength, he could at least stand with those saints, even if he couldn't be on equal footing with the 3 quasi-saint supremes. However, these things were all empty and useless in Shao Chun's eyes. Before the secret realm appeared, it was always right to keep a low profile. Originally, he didn't intend to attract attention, but when Shao Chun closed his eyes to regulate his breathing, a fat Tian clan cultivator with a Dao Emperor realm cultivation took the initiative to approach Shao Chun and said with a warm smile, "Brother, you're also here to compete for this secret realm, but I think we don't have a chance this time. Do you see the 3 people on the mountain peak? They're all quasi-saint supremes. With the 3 of them here, we probably don't have a chance." He didn't know this fat man at all, but he acted like they were close. After hearing this, Shao Chun glanced at him indifferently and didn't have any intention of talking to him. Then, he closed his eyes and meditated again. Shao Chun acted very indifferent, but the fat man had no intention of leaving at all. In the end, he even sat right next to Shao Chun and chatted about everything under the sun. As he spoke, he even talked about what had happened in Ethereal City not long ago. "Alas, brother, did you know that a major event happened in Ethereal City half a month ago? Do you know the Mo clan of Ethereal City? It's the #1 clan in Ethereal City. Don't you know the Emo clan? You should know that Emojuadai, right? Not only is he a disciple of the Heavenly Palace, but he's also the 45th Holy Son on the Saint rankings. But unfortunately, half a month ago, it's said that the human clan's holy son, Shao Chun, passed by Ethereal City. For some reason, not only did Shao Chun kill Emojuadai, he even slaughtered the entire Emo clan. This matter caused a great shock in our Tian clan. It's said that many young people of the Tian clan expressed their desire to kill Shao Chun. Our Tian clan is so powerful, how can we allow a human clan cultivator to be so rampant? The fat man spoke leisurely. Hearing this, Shao Chun was a little amused. Many young people of the Tian clan wanted to kill him. Hey, that's not bad. Unfortunately, these people were probably just talking. Moreover, with their strength, could they kill him? While the fat man and Shao Chun were chatting, a change finally occurred on the mountaintop. A multicolored light burst out, and the dazzling light made it impossible for people to open their eyes. Soon after, everyone could vaguely see that the ground at the top of the mountain seemed to have been torn apart. Soon after, a circular hole with a diameter of about 10 meters appeared. This hole went all the way into the mountain. Moreover, from the hole, a white spirit chi that was almost visible to the naked eye drifted out. Although it was faint and rapid, this wisp of spirit chi was enough to make people feel refreshed. Wasn't this a secret realm? Following the change on the mountaintop, everyone was a little depressed. This clearly didn't look like a secret realm. They were a little disappointed, but this disappointment didn't last long. Soon, on the mountaintop, a quasi-sage great sovereign spoke, and everyone present was stunned. This is the 10,000-year spirit milk pool. How is this possible? Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. Chapter 1429. It wasn't a mystic realm. However, when this quasi-sage great venerable said the words 10,000-year spiritual milk pool, everyone around was dumbfounded. The so-called 10,000-year spiritual milk pool was a spiritual pool formed after the spiritual energy of heaven and earth had been deposited for tens of thousands of years, or even hundreds of thousands of years. Because the spiritual liquid was milky white and had been formed for at least 10,000 years, it was called the 10,000-year spiritual milk pool. Although the 10,000-year spiritual milk pool wasn't a secret realm, its preciousness wasn't inferior to a secret realm at all. It was even more precious than most secret realms. Just think about it. How pure was the energy contained in the spiritual liquid that had been deposited in the 10,000-year time lock? It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that this 10,000-year spiritual milk pool would have a fatal attraction to any martialist with a high cultivation base. There was no other use other than to help a warrior cultivate. It was a one-off use. After all, there was a limit to the amount of spiritual liquid in the 10,000 years old spirit milk pool. Once the spiritual liquid in the 10,000 years old spirit milk pool was completely absorbed, it would naturally be wasted. It would take at least 10,000 years to slowly recover. The number of 10,000-year spiritual milk pools was extremely rare in the entire central world. Who would have thought that one would appear here? After a brief moment of stupefaction, everyone's breathing quickened, and a fiery look appeared in their eyes. In the face of a never-before-seen 10,000-year spiritual milk pool, it was believed that no cultivator could remain indifferent. Therefore, the reaction of these people was reasonable. Even the fatty from the heavenly clan who had been bragging to Shao Chun had a fiery look in his eyes. But this fiery look was quickly extinguished. I didn't expect it to be a 10,000-year spiritual milk pool. If I had known earlier, I'm afraid even the heavenly palace would have come. Unfortunately, we have no hope. The fatty wasn't lying. If they had known earlier that it was a 10,000-year spiritual milk pool, even the heavenly palace wouldn't have remained indifferent. But even if no one from the heavenly palace came, they wouldn't have a share of the 10,000-year spiritual milk pool. After all, there were 3 quasi-saint great sovereigns and more than 20 saints on the mountain peak. The fatty had completely given up on seizing this pool of spirit milk. After all, with his cultivation at the Tao Emperor realm, it was utterly impossible for him to become eminent amongst so many experts. However, not only did Xiao Chen not give up, but he was also very excited. If he could obtain the 10,000 years spiritual milk pool, Xiao Chen would have the possibility to break through to the saint realm. It should be known that Xiao Chen was already a half-step saint. He was only half a step away from becoming a saint. Once Xiao Chen broke through to the saint realm, he would have the confidence to fight against those celestial saints on the saint rankings. No matter what, he had to seize this 10,000-year spirit milk pool. However, now wasn't the time. The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. It was better to fight with the 3 quasi-sage great venerables and saints first. Not in a hurry to make a move, Xiao Chen continued to sit cross-legged on the spot quietly. Just as Xiao Chen thought, who wouldn't want to monopolize a 10,000-year spirit milk pool? Therefore, while Xiao Chen was secretly making a decision, the 3 quasi-sage great venerables had already begun to fight on the mountain top. After the quasi-sage great venerate standing on the far left decided that this was really a 10,000-year spirit milk pool, he directly attacked the other quasi-sage great venerate beside him without any warning. Although it was a somewhat despicable sneak attack, who would care about this in the face of such a precious treasure? Of course, the other party wasn't an idiot. Anyone who could become a quasi-sage great venerate was an experienced person. Therefore, the quasi-sage great venerate standing in the middle had already been on guard. In the face of the sneak attack, the quasi-sage great venerate moved his body and dodged it easily. After dodging the sneak attack, the quasi-sage great venerate revealed a faint smile. I already knew that you would use this move. You have done a lot of sneaky things over the years. The 3 quasi-sage great venerates weren't strangers to each other, so they naturally knew each other's character like the back of their hands. The quasi-sage great venerate who launched the sneak attack didn't get angry. Instead, he smiled faintly. You can't blame me for this. Who wouldn't be tempted by such a precious treasure in front of them? Why don't the 2 of you retreat? I will definitely reward you handsomely when the time comes. How about it? Ha, what a joke. Then the 2 of you retreat. I will definitely reward you handsomely when the time comes. How about it? You really have a lot of nonsense. Won't we know who it belongs to after a fight? The 3 quasi-sage great venerates spoke one after another. It seemed like the 3 of them had no intention of sharing this 10,000-year spirit milk pool with others. Thinking about it, who would be willing to share such a precious treasure with others? Unless they were fools. The 3 quasi-sage great venerates attacked each other at the same time. Following the eruption of the battle between the 3 quasi-sage great venerates, more than 20 saints below also attacked. For a moment, the lunar mountain was in chaos. The experts fought endlessly for the 10,000-year spirit milk pool, while the other cultivators with lower cultivation retreated one after another. At this time, they also knew that this 10,000-year spirit milk pool was not fated with them. Under the eyes of so many experts, they simply didn't have the slightest chance. Xiao Chen, who was mixed in the crowd, also retreated to the side. However, his expression was different from the others. Hidden under the black bamboo hat, Xiao Chen's lips were slightly curled up, revealing a confident smile. The others didn't dare to snatch the food from the tiger's mouth, but Xiao Chen dared. Moreover, seeing these people fighting so fiercely, Xiao Chen was secretly delighted. Fight, the more intense the fight, the better. In the end, Xiao Chen would come to clean up the mess. Now that so many experts were fighting together, they didn't know that they were making a wedding dress for Xiao Chen. If they didn't fight, then Xiao Chen might have a headache. After all, he was from the human race, and this was the territory of the sky race. If these experts didn't fight and Xiao Chen came forward to snatch it, then he would undoubtedly become the target of public criticism. But judging from the current situation, when these experts fought to the point where both sides were injured, Xiao Chen would come forward and snatch this 10,000-year spirit milk pool. While they were fighting happily, these experts obviously didn't know that there was a fierce tiger eyeing them covetously from the side. Once both sides were injured, Xiao Chen would jump out to reap the spoils of war. A pair of eyes stared fixedly at the battle on the mountain top. It could be seen that these three quasi-sage great venerates were really angry. Their attacks could be said to be extremely ruthless, without the slightest bit of mercy. However, this was just right. It would be best if they perished together. Please collect, please vote, please recommend. Chapter 1430. Hidden in the crowd, Xiao Chen quietly watched the battle between the three quasi-saint great venerables and the over 20 saints. In Xiao Chen's eyes, only the three quasi-saint great venerables were worthy of his attention. As for the others, including the saints, they were no threat to him at all, let alone the half-saints and Tao Emperor realm cultivators below them. All the major forces were fighting, but there were only three forces that had the strength to compete for the 10,000-year spirit milk pool, which were the sects of the three quasi-saint great venerables. Only these three sects had the strength to compete for the 10,000-year spirit milk pool. As for the other forces, they could only be said to be bystanders. He secretly observed the situation in the field, and was not in a hurry to make a move. He wanted to let them fight for a while. It would be best if both sides were injured. When that happened, Xiao Chen would appear again and reap the benefits. Moreover, Xiao Chen was not afraid that the 10,000-year spirit milk pool would be seized by others after he obtained it, because the pool itself had its own set of defensive mechanisms. Once someone jumped into the pool itself would immediately form a defensive barrier. This defensive barrier was constructed from the purest heaven and earth spirit qi. Even if the great sage came, it would be difficult to break it. Therefore, to a certain extent, it was impossible for the 10,000-year spirit milk pool to be shared with others, because as long as one person jumped into it, the following people would not be able to enter the pool. Perhaps it was because of this reason that everyone present was fighting so fiercely. After all, everyone wanted to obtain the 10,000-year spirit milk pool. The unique attribute allowed Xiao Chen to have the possibility of monopolizing the pool. Moreover, he did not have to worry about being disturbed. Xiao Chen could cultivate in peace until the spiritual liquid in the pool was completely absorbed. No one knew what Xiao Chen was thinking, because in the face of the three quasi-saint great venerables, none of the wandering cultivators present would dare to snatch the pool from the tiger's mouth. Although the three quasi-saint great venerates were fighting fiercely, this was under the condition that no one else was interfering. Once someone else intervened, the three quasi-saint great venerates would most likely unite against the external enemy. Time passed by slowly. Mount Yuehua had completely turned into a battlefield. Martial artists of different cultivation levels were fighting everywhere. Terrifying aftershocks were rampant. After fighting fiercely for more than 4 hours, the three quasi-saint great venerables were all injured, and the outcome of the battle had yet to be decided. If the battle continued, it was likely that both sides would suffer in the end. The three quasi-saint great venerables also stopped what they were doing and continued to stand proudly on the mountain peak. However, compared to the beginning, the three of them were in a sorry state. It'll be hard to determine a victor even if we continue fighting. How about this? The person who wants to monopolize the 10,000-year spirit milk pool will have to take out 2 treasures and give them to the other 2. This way, it'll be fair, said one of the quasi-saints. Seeing the three quasi-saint great venerables stop fighting, it seemed that the three of them were also rational people. They didn't lose their heads because of the 10,000-year spirit milk pool in front of them. After all, although the 10,000-year spirit milk pool was attractive, one had to be alive to enjoy it. If they continued fighting, the best result would be that both sides would suffer in the end. At that time, not only would they not be able to obtain the 10,000-year spirit milk pool, they might even be taken advantage of by others. Therefore, the three of them also stopped fighting at the same time, intending to use other methods to determine the ownership of the 10,000-year spirit milk pool. Looking at the three people on the mountain peak, Xiao Chen sighed softly. It seemed that he still had to make a move. However, it didn't matter. After the fierce battle earlier, although the three quasi-saint great venerables weren't seriously injured, they must have consumed a lot of their strength. Compared to their peak state, their battle strength must have decreased. Moreover, Xiao Chen still had 4 tokens on him, which were enough to kill the 3 quasi-saint great venerables. As for the other saints, to be honest, Xiao Chen didn't care too much about them. With the numerous talismans on him, just the talismans alone were enough to make these saints suffer. That was one of the benefits of being a son of the saint ranking. He had an extremely deep foundation and a variety of means at his disposal. As such, even in the face of such a situation, Xiao Chen still had the confidence to fight even if he was alone. Thinking of this, Xiao Chen slowly got up. Seeing this, the fatty beside him was taken aback. "Brother, what are you trying to do?" This fatty was indeed a friendly person. It hadn't been long, but he was already calling Xiao Chen brother. Hearing this, Xiao Chen smiled faintly. "Of course I'm going to make a move. The 10,000-year spirit milk pool is right in front of us. It won't be a pity to let it go," Xiao Chen said indifferently. But when the fatty heard this, he looked shocked and said, "What did you say? You're going to—" He originally wanted to say that Xiao Chen was overestimating himself, but before he could finish, Xiao Chen had already taken off the bamboo hat on his head. When he saw Xiao Chen's face, the fatty was stunned. The fatty was a busybody, so after the incident in Ethereal City spread, he specially spent some effort to buy a portrait of Xiao Chen. As a saint on the saint ranking, as long as one was willing, one could buy a portrait of Xiao Chen even in the sky race territory. Of course, it wasn't only Xiao Chen. As long as one could afford it, one could buy a portrait of any saint on the saint ranking. Why you're Xiao Chen. Never could he have imagined that the person sitting next to him would be the same person who had killed Mo Juedai and massacred the entire Mo clan, the holy son of the human race, Xiao Chen. What's wrong? Are you surprised? Facing the fatty's smile, Xiao Chen smiled and strode towards the top of the mountain. The people of the 3 major sects were already badly battered. The 3 quasi-saint great venerables were still fine, but there were already casualties among the other people in their sections. Moreover, there were quite a number of casualties. Therefore, Xiao Chen's appearance at this time was beyond the expectations of the 3 major sections. Along the way, no one dared to stop Xiao Chen. He walked all the way to the saint experts of the 3 major sections. At this moment, the saint experts of the 3 major sects blocked Xiao Chen's path. One of them even shouted coldly, "Scram, or die." Just as Xiao Chen had expected, the 3 major sects were indeed like this. As soon as an outsider attacked, they would unite immediately. However, since Xiao Chen had already shown up, he wouldn't back down so easily. As soon as the saint expert finished speaking, Xiao Chen pointed his finger and a green sword light flashed. At the same time, on the top of a mountain not far away, one of the quasi-saints exclaimed in shock. "The human race's saint, Xiao Chen? Not good, retreat quickly. Please collect, vote, recommend." Chapter 1431. The quasi-saint Great Venerate immediately recognized Xiao Chen's identity. What had happened in Ethereal City half a month ago had made Xiao Chen completely famous in the Tian clan's territory. He originally thought that it was some ignorant nobody who had come to court death, but he didn't expect it to be Shao Chen. Although Shao Chen was only a half-saint, his combat strength definitely surpassed the majority of saints. The saint rankings couldn't be judged by common sense. It was precisely because of how terrifying the saint rankings were, not to mention that Shao Chen had killed Emojuadai and was now ranked 45th on the saint rankings. Therefore, the quasi-saint Great Venerate immediately warned the saint to retreat. However, even though he warned Mo Xie immediately, he was still a step too late. The saint, who was only at the beginning of the sage state, did not even have the chance to react before Mo Xie's sword finger pierced through his forehead. Killing a saint with a single finger. This was Shao Chen's current strength. After breaking through to the half-saint realm, Shao Chen's strength had increased by a lot. Dead. A saint had died in front of everyone just like that. The surrounding people were all dumbfounded. Facing the shock of the crowd, Shao Chen said indifferently, not caring at all, "I want this 10,000-year spiritual milk pool." Everyone scram. He was incomparably domineering. He wanted to fight the 10,000-year spiritual milk pool alone. Hearing this, the faces of the three quasi-saint great venerates on the mountain peak darkened. Anger, graveness, and even a trace of fear flashed through their eyes. If the three parties hadn't fought fiercely earlier, the three quasi-saint great venerates wouldn't have given up the 10,000-year spiritual milk pool, even if the person who came was Shao Chen. Unfortunately, after more than 4 hours of fierce battle, all three of them had consumed a lot of their spiritual energy. Even the three of them had consumed a lot of their spiritual energy. Under such circumstances, even though the three sects had thousands of people, they still did not dare to say that they had the confidence to defeat Shao Chen. Sometimes, a sacred child of the saint ranking was enough to suppress a major force, especially now that the sacred children of the saint ranking were gradually growing up. Their power was much stronger than before. But even so, these three quasi-sage great venerables were still unwilling to give up just like that. After all, that was the 10,000-year spirit milk pool, a supreme treasure that even the heavenly palace valued. How could they let Shao Chen give it up with just a few words? Therefore, the quasi-sage supreme venerate who had spoken earlier said gloomily, "Shao Chen, even if you are a sage on the saint roll, you can't be so overbearing, right? Moreover, don't forget, this is the Tian clan, not your human clan. Don't you think you're going too far by telling us to give up on this 10,000-year-old spirit milk pool with just a few words? Going too far? You think too much. I didn't mean that. It's just that your strength isn't enough to monopolize this 10,000-year-old spirit milk pool. When a supreme treasure appears, it has always been occupied by the capable. Therefore, this 10,000-year-old spirit milk pool is mine," Shao Chen said indifferently. "Impossible. If you want to monopolize this 10,000-year-old spirit milk pool, you have to kill all of us." Shao Chen's indifferent attitude caused the quasi-sage supreme venerate's face to darken. He immediately shouted angrily. He was unwilling to give up on this 10,000-year-old spirit milk pool. Seeing this, Shao Chen raised his head and looked at the quasi-sage supreme venerate with a faint killing intent in his eyes. "So you don't agree? Very well." As soon as he finished speaking, Shao Chen's storage ring flashed and a spirit tablet appeared in Shao Chen's hand. This spirit tablet was found by Shao Chen from Mo Juedai's body. However, it was also created by the great sage, and its power was the same as the 3 spirit tablets Yinyangzi had given him. Shao Chen directly took out the spirit tablet. It was obvious that he planned to kill the quasi-sage supreme venerate in one blow. Looking at the spirit tablet in Shao Chen's hand, the quasi-sage supreme venerate raised his eyebrows. As a quasi-sage supreme venerate, he naturally knew what a spirit tablet was. Moreover, with Shao Chen's status, the power of this spirit tablet could be imagined. It was definitely created by the great sage. Without the slightest hesitation, the quasi-sage supreme venerate turned around and wanted to escape the moment he saw Shao Chen take out the spirit tablet. Unfortunately, Shao Chen had already crushed the spirit tablet in his hand. Don't you think it's a little too late to run now? He didn't give the quasi-sage supreme venerate any chance at all. As the spirit tablet shattered, a terrifying aura instantly spread out. At the same time, a dazzling white light erupted between everyone like the sun in the sky. The aura directly locked onto the quasi-sage supreme venerate. Even though he had already run thousands of meters away, he was still firmly locked onto by this aura. An extreme threat of death shrouded his entire body. At the same time, the sun-like white light also burst out at this moment. The light instantly swallowed the quasi-sage supreme venerate's body. At the same time, the surrounding space also began to collapse inch by inch, and a huge spatial black hole appeared. The light was so dazzling that people couldn't open their eyes. After about a quarter of an hour, the light slowly dissipated. But it was also at this moment that the quasi-sage supreme venerate from before had completely disappeared. Not even a trace of his aura was left behind. He was directly killed. This was the great sage's strength. Under a single attack, a quasi-sage supreme venerate didn't even have the strength to resist at all. Shao Chen didn't waste any time and killed a quasi-sage supreme venerate right away. Although he didn't rely on his own strength, it still caused a trace of extreme fear to emerge in everyone's hearts. Without changing his expression, Shao Chen's gaze landed on the remaining two quasi-sage supreme venerates again. The storage ring in his hand flashed again, and another spirit tablet appeared in his hand. He smiled faintly and said to the two quasi-sage supreme venerates, "What about you guys? Don't you plan to give up?" It was another spirit tablet. Upon hearing this, the two quasi-sage supreme venerates didn't dare to stop him and immediately shook their heads. "No, no, no. Holy Sun, please. We naturally don't have the fortune to enjoy such a supreme treasure. It should belong to the Holy Sun." What a joke. Just a minute ago, another quasi-sage supreme venerate had been killed by Shao Chen's spirit tablet. How would the two of them dare to continue to occupy this 10,000-year spirit milk pool? Compared to the temptation of the 10,000-year spirit milk pool, their own lives were obviously more important. Upon hearing the two quasi-sage supreme venerates' words, Shao Chen smiled faintly and said, "That's right." With that, Shao Chen strode towards the mountain peak and killed a quasi-sage supreme venerate with a thunderous strike. Everyone was so intimidated that they didn't dare to make the slightest move. Shao Chen also successfully occupied this 10,000-year spirit milk pool. Begging for collection, begging for monthly votes, begging for recommendations. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.